CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays at 9 on GBNews.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamonn.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GBNews.
Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute. Kick it up a gear with me, Patrick Christie's, at drive time, 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+, on the smart speaker app and on the GB News app. And if you've got an Alexa, all you have to say is, Alexa, play GB News. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with me, Patrick Christie's, on GB News and GB News Radio.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Six o'clock is the time. A very good morning to you. You're very welcome to breakfast here on GB News with Eamonn, Holmes and Isabel Webster.
And here's what's leading the news this morning. Civil order in Gaza is breaking down as Israeli tanks pour over the border, continuing their ground assault to destroy the stronghold of evil and dismantle Hamas. That's as world leaders express their concern over getting aid into Gaza. Mark White has the latest from Tel Aviv.
You need to get rid of that.
In Gaza overnight, we're told that hundreds more raids have taken place. In fact, 600 raids over the last few days, according to the Israeli military. And in the north of Israel, a soldier has been killed and 2 others injured when their tank overturned.
Speak to you shortly, Mark. Thank you. A whiff of rebellion within Labour over Sir Keir Starmer's position on the conflict as senior Labour frontbenchers plead for a ceasefire. Political correspondent Catherine Foster is in Westminster. Catherine?
Yes, a real challenge to Sir Keir Starmer's authority. He is asking for a humanitarian pause, but Labour mayors and increasingly now frontbench MPs are coming out asking for a ceasefire. I'll bring you the latest shortly.
Thank you.
Tributes continue to pour in from near and far over the sudden death of the Friends star Matthew Perry over the weekend in Los Angeles. Plenty of emotional reactions. We'll take a look at your tributes to Matthew shortly.
Paul Coit, sport yesterday, particularly the football, nothing to report.
OK, I'll just do it very quickly. A bit of a bad day for Manchester United yesterday. A bad day for English cricket, but a good day for Max Verstappen. Not only that, but he celebrated by wearing a sombrero, which is always good.
Always good.
Always good to wear a sombrero.
And I would say, people could say, oh, but Man City got a lucky penalty and this and that. But wouldn't have mattered. They are a different class. They are. I think yesterday I saw the Premiership title winners.
I don't like to give American phrases, but we'll talk over it and we'll give you closure. We'll give you closure.
But Spurs were top yesterday, weren't they? Are they
still? I think Spurs still are.
Easy for you to say.
Still are. Yeah.
Still top.
OK, good man, good man.
Plus, it is looking rather wet out there today. Rachel Ayres has your full forecast later on.
It may be a new week, but the unsettled theme in the weather is not going anywhere. Further showers and rain expected today with disruptive weather later in the week. Join me later for a full forecast with all the details.
And you can join in any of our discussions, and indeed discussions we're not having. For instance, I did a few audiences with around the country in Belfast and in Glasgow and in Huddersfield over the past couple of weeks. And thank you to everybody who came out and say, we watch or we listen to GB News. And Isabel, all of them asking, what about Isabel? And there's a few things...
What do they want to know? Am I nice?
Am
I nice?
Well, look, I couldn't really go into that sort of personal detail about you. But they were saying, she's getting very good at her eyes. I said, is she? I said, yeah, do you know every time you speak, she looks at the camera and goes...
I do not every time.
Am I doing that right? It's... rolling your eyeballs at any wisdom that I'm saying.
I'm sure it's not at the wise bits. Yeah.
But then there's other things they're asking for, which I'm going to tell you about. If you were to meet Isabel, what would you want? Belonging to Isabel, I'll tell you. GBViews at gbnews.com, or you can tweet at GBNews.
Right, coming up to 4 minutes past 6. Let's start with our top story this morning. Israeli armoured vehicles are continuing to pour into Gaza as their defence forces begin to take over the strip piece by piece.
Israel claims to have killed dozens of militants in direct clashes with Hamas. This is in northern Gaza. The military says the Hamas fighters were killed leaving a tunnel near the Erez crossing, which should link Gaza to Israel before the conflict broke out.
Well, the Palestinian Red Crescent say that Israel's asked them to immediately evacuate the Al-Quds hospital, but they're unable to do so. Israel say that one of Hamas's key operating centres lies directly beneath it in their network of tunnels.
Well, so far, 38 trucks carrying supplies have been allowed to enter Gaza from Egypt just a day after hundreds raided a United Nations depot to take rations.
And in a surprise tweet from the Rafah crossing in Egypt, International Criminal Court prosecutor Karim Khan warned of the dire situation in Gaza and said he hoped to visit Gaza and Israel to investigate possible war crimes.
We're independently looking at the situation in Palestine. We are looking at the events in Israel and the allegations that Palestinian nationals have also committed crimes. We need cooperation, we need assistance, but we're going to have the determination, the stamina and the professionalism to make sure we separate allegation from fact.
Reports also suggesting that Hamas is blocking the exit of foreign nationals in order to extract concessions from Israel and allies.
Well, the fighting might be confined to the Holy Land, but the problems are not. This new footage from Makhachkala Airport in the Dagestani Republic of Russia shows a crowd storming the terminal, seeking people who are arriving from Tel Aviv. And
scary pictures there.
Anti-Semitic behaviour there.
So they are looking for Jewish people there because they've aligned themselves with Iran in this whole conflict. How absolutely frightening is that?
60 arrests following on from that.
Well, security forces deployed there, and they brought those 60 arrests to bring the situation under control. Israel responded by urging Russia, and this is a quote, to protect all its citizens and all Jews.
Well, let's speak to our security editor, Mark White, who is in Tel Aviv. Good morning to you, Mark, and all of this a reminder of just how important it is to get this situation under control, because the fear of spread, of escalation into a wider conflict.
Yeah, there's no doubt there's a great deal of concern about that incident that unfolded in Dagestan. It wasn't just the fact that this mob rampaged through the airport. They actually got airside and surrounded that aircraft. The Israelis incidentally said that although that flight had come from Tel Aviv, there were no Israeli nationals on the flight, according to the Israelis, but very alarming just the same. And also outside the airport, the reports that this mob was stopping vehicles leaving the airport, demanding to see identification documents so they could determine whether people were from Israel or not. As you mentioned in your introduction, some 60 people arrested. The Dagestan authorities say that they have identified 150 people who were involved in this unrest last night.
And Mark, we're hearing this morning that the US President Joe Biden's security advisor has suggested that Hamas is preventing Brits and other foreign nationals from leaving the Strip. I know that this is something that yesterday Camilla Tominey was also pressing Michelle Donnellan about, and that is how exactly we get British nationals out of there. What more can you tell us about that?
Well, the biggest impediment to British or any other nationalities getting out is the fact that the Rafah crossing into Egypt is not open to allow people to leave Gaza. But it wouldn't surprise me if Hamas is preventing British nationals, other foreign nationals or dual nationals from leaving. We know there are widespread reports that Hamas has stopped many of its citizens in the north of Gaza from heading down south as per the orders of the Israeli military so that they can continue with this ground offensive, and hundreds of thousands of people still remain in the north of Gaza, making it so much more difficult for the Israelis to avoid more civilian casualties, because they say that Hamas are cynically basically putting their terrorist infrastructure, their rocket launchers and the like, in and amongst civilian areas, sensitive sites. They said that yesterday they had struck a university in the north of Gaza where there was Hamas infrastructure, another building that they attacked and destroyed with apparently 20 Hamas terrorists inside that building, using that as a post to launch attacks on the Israeli ground forces as they enter into northern Gaza.
OK, Mark, thank you very much with your updates this morning. I know we'll be speaking to you throughout the course of the programme. See you in a little bit.
Labour's infighting has continued through the weekend as Shadow Science Secretary Peter Kyle claimed Labour will not sack shadow cabinet members for rebelling against Keir Starmer's stance on the Israel-Gaza conflict.
But with a growing in-party divide over the issue, will the party's Blair-like poll lead begin to dwindle? Well, joining us now is our political correspondent, Catherine Forster. Good morning to you, Catherine. I mean, for such a long time now, Sir Keir Starmer's been able to sit back and watch the Conservative Party kind of eat itself and tear itself apart. He's taken a misstep on this, hasn't he? Because now his own party is doing that.
Yes, it's only just over 3 weeks since the beginning of this conflict, which coincided with the Labour conference. And at that conference, Labour were able to hold a very united line on this. Sure, there were pro-Palestinian protests, but they were outside the security area. They were absolutely on the fringes. That position, of course, though, has shifted because as attention moves from the appalling events of October the 7th onto the humanitarian crisis in Gaza, there are increasing calls for a ceasefire coming from within members of the Labour shadow front bench, from people like Labour mayors, Sadiq Khan, the London Labour mayor, Andy Burnham, the mayor of Greater Manchester, and Anna Sarwar, the Scottish Labour leader. Now, that's in direct opposition to the leader's position. Sir Keir Starmer has called for a humanitarian pause. That's also the government's position and that of the United States. Now, he got himself into a lot of trouble a couple of weeks ago, didn't he, over his interview with LBC, in which he appeared to suggest that Israel had the right to withhold food and water. He sort of rode back from that, but now there's open dissent within the Labour Party, because he's saying, let's have a humanitarian pause. It's important to get aid into Gaza. We see the consequences of what's happening in Gaza unfolding, the horrors there, but that's not enough for many within his party. And also, I think worth remembering, there's about nearly 4 million Muslims in England and Wales. Now, the majority of those at a general election will vote Labour. So many MPs are very mindful of their constituents and very mindful that if Labour are not seen to be taking a more nuanced view on this and are supporting Israel, that will hurt them ultimately.
Here's what I don't understand, Catherine. What is the difference between a pause and a ceasefire? Surely Starmer could get away with saying, we'll have a pause here.
Well, that's what Peter Kyle, the Shadow Science Secretary, said yesterday. He said, look, we're dancing on the head of a pin here, basically saying that this is just semantics. But I suppose a ceasefire is supposed to be indefinite, without end. Of course, we've seen ceasefires in previous wars not take hold or break down after hours or days, whereas a humanitarian pause or even pauses is something that's clearly very temporary. But you're completely right, Eamonn. To the people in Gaza, desperate for food, for water, for power, wondering how they're going to survive, I think they will see this as purely semantics. They will just say, stop the bombing, stop the attack, give us help, and call it whatever you like.
Whilst we're talking about Labour this morning, I want to ask you about these 2 Labour MPs who are heading to the Bibi Stockholm barge. They want to have a look on board, see what it's like, claiming they have been denied access.
Yes, another thing that Keir Starmer really does not need right now. Lloyd Russell-Moyle, he's a backbench MP. Nadia Whittome, now I understand now that she is not going to go. She was, but she's decided not to. Now, what they wanted was to go onto the Bibi Stockholm barge to see the conditions in which these people that have crossed the channel on small boats are living. But they approached the Home Office. That permission has not been granted. So what's going to happen is Lloyd Russell-Moyle is going to go down there. He's going to meet some of the asylum seekers that are being housed on the barge. He's going to meet the local mayor, who's very opposed to people being put on this barge in this area in the first place. But they're making the point that they're very concerned about the conditions in which these people are being kept. They don't want it to be seen as punishment for trying to get here and seek asylum. But I suspect that the Labour leadership could really do without this today.
Let's look at the Conservatives. Big week. They're sort of billing this AI summit that they're having, and they'd love world leaders and things to come round. I'm actually laughing. I can't wait to talk to the government minister about this today. They're actually flying the flag and saying, we are investing 2 million quid in AI this week. Now, I look at this and I go, that's like me saying to you, would you lend us a fiver? I mean, 2 million quid. Catherine, this is so paltry, this is so ridiculous. And they expect Joe Biden and President Xi from China and everybody to head to London. And the big announcement is, we're going to invest 2 million quid. It's laughable.
It's not a lot of money, is it? Let's face it. From the government, £2 million is really nothing. But they are making some announcements this week in how they can help AI to reduce teacher workload and things like that. But this summit, it's happening on Wednesday and Thursday in Bletchley Park, which, of course, the home of the code breakers during the war. This is something that Prime Minister Rishi Sunak feels very, very strongly about. Now, sure, he hasn't got Joe Biden. Vice President Kamala Harris is coming instead. President Macron won't be there. Olaf Scholz won't be there. But Ursula von der Leyen from the European Commission will be there. There will be a representative from China. And what this is about is basically looking at what Rishi Sunak sees as the existential threat that artificial intelligence poses, and the worst case scenarios being got hold of by terrorists and being used by bad actors, or the worst case, artificial intelligence simply overtaking humans' ability to control it, and the doomsday scenario, meaning the end of humanity. I think a lot of this is obviously signalling. There's been other AI conferences taking place, but Rishi Sunak really feels strongly that this is somewhere that the UK should be leading. Let's see how it goes.
Catherine, let's see how it goes. When I hear, thanks, Catherine, bye. When they talk about AI will reduce the workload of teachers, what they actually mean is it will reduce teachers. They don't care about the workload of teachers. They just care about reducing teachers. We won't have to pay for them anymore. That'll be great.
Do you think? I thought it was
Absolutely.
all about lesson planning and all the rest of it. I was reading
it's about less
press
teachers.
release, and they said 60% of the jobs of today didn't exist. Is it 60%? In 1960. So it's just sort of trying to hint that everything's changing. I don't know.
Yeah, but what about the jobs that did exist? They're just ignored, you know.
Well, look, what I think is great about this summit, yes, I think it's going to be a huge challenge for jobs, but part of the ambition of this summit was to create boundaries, to create legislation, to stop, sort of Terminator scenario whereby the machines take over and destroy us type thing. So that's got to be welcomed. But unfortunately, no leaders that I can see have actually agreed to come.
No.
Not a single one.
And it's all about, it's just about reducing jobs. And Sunak, that's what Sunak's whole thing is. Sunak's about not spending money, not investing in social housing, this ridiculous £2 million. Do they have no embarrassment at all? If I was a government minister today, I'd be saying, let's not just talk about how much we're putting into this week. Let's say we're making investment. Don't just avoid the question about how much type thing. Do they not realise how petty and how pathetic and how inconsequential to announce an investment of £2 million is? I will be laughing at that today. Will you be laughing at it? Let us know. AI, it is the end of the world. It will be.
Oh, gosh, I hope not.
You don't think so?
I hope not.
It won't be the end of the world for a while, but it will be the end of the world.
Not in our lifetime, maybe.
It won't be in our
6:19. You're tuned into Breakfast on GB News with Eamonn and Isabel. It's good to be back. It is good to be back together. Here's a reminder of our top stories. Civil order in Gaza is breaking down. Israeli tanks have poured over the border and they are continuing their ground assaults to dismantle Hamas, as Israel's Benjamin Netanyahu has labelled Gaza the stronghold of evil. That's as world leaders express their concern over getting aid into Gaza.
I've just been talking about a whiff of rebellion in Labour over Keir Starmer's position on the conflict as senior Labour frontbenchers plead for a ceasefire or a pause.
And coming up later in the programme, Rishi Sunak is planning to double down on the so-called anti-green policies in his King's Speech by announcing further expansion of North Sea oil and gas exploration and lots of pro-car policies. So we're asking in our debate today, is it right to prioritise cheaper energy bills over saving the planet?
That is a big one. That is a big one. Do we save the planet or do we generate money? The thing about governments only know one way of generating income, and that is through punitive taxes. Now, I have more respect for anybody who will say, we're going to create an industry or we're going to nationalise an industry.
That's what Liz Truss was going on about. To be fair to her, why does it always have to be tax, tax, tax?
Yes, why can't we create money? Why can't we say, I'm just choosing this out of the air. Fracking. Say, if we do fracking and we get all the benefit from fracking, all the income raised from that, that's going to be good for the country. It may not be good for the environment, and that is the thing about that. But
my own view is that not necessarily does it have to be one thing or the other. If you think about things that are good for the planet, a lot of it actually doesn't involve spending money. It means consuming less, eating less meat, buying fewer things, recycling. None of that has to cost the earth. Turning your lights off, maybe it even saves you bills. Wearing a jumper instead of putting the heating on. This argument that to be, a friend of the people, cost of living policies are expensive, I don't buy it.
Well, I think that people know their rights. I don't have to wear a jumper if I want to walk into a room.
Then what sort of bars are our kids going to have?
No, I know that, but I'm saying there's going to be a lot of people saying, why should my human rights be denied to me that I now have to wear a jumper instead of walking into a fully fledged heated room?
I know.
The way it is. But I mean, like I'm old enough to remember. I mean, we didn't have central heating in our house. Indeed, you've just bought a house that has no central heating. But Back to the Future there. But anyway, I remember this will be your winter. I remember when you breathe and the inside of the window then becomes iced up.
Yeah.
Iced up.
Can't wait.
And we used to have this 1-bar electric fire that you would bring in.
And got dressed in front of it.
Yeah, my dad would bring it in the morning, like from his room, and then it'd be into our room, and that would be the one thing we'd have. Yeah. But you know what my dad used to do? I mean, 5 boys in our house, and if you didn't get up in the morning...
Wet flannel. That's what my mum did.
Wet basin or
bucket. Oh, really? A bucket?
I mean, he would just basically go into the bathroom, get a cold water basin and throw it round you.
My mum did a wet flannel. And honestly, no one would do that in today's world. That would be child abuse.
Think of your rights. Childline.
I'm going wrong there.
My kids just used to say to me that recite the childline number. That's what they used to do. We were reporting you the childline. And
I don't know where they got that sass from, Eamonn. I don't know.
Here's Rachel Ayres, the weather, bit of a mixed picture ahead this week. Morning, Rachel.
Good morning. My name's Rachel Ayres and welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast brought to you by the Met Office. So we saw plenty of rain and showers throughout the weekend and not a huge amount of change as we go into the new week. Heavy showers that could be thundery across southern parts of Wales and England as we go through this morning, with that overnight rain having cleared away from Scotland and northeast England. Some sunny spells around as well, especially across Scotland and central and eastern parts of England. And it'll feel pretty pleasant here, especially away from the coast where those winds are a little bit lighter. So highs of 14 to 16 in the south. They're a little bit cooler in the north with those northerly winds. Now, as we go through this afternoon, we'll see further showers continuing, but this band of showers will become a little bit more organised into this evening and bringing some heavy and persistent rain to Northern Ireland. So there could be some disruption here. Plenty of clear spells, though, ahead of this, especially across southern England and Scotland. And a bit of a chilly night across Scotland as well. Could be a touch of frost in some sheltered rural spots. So to start Tuesday then, we'll see this band of organised showers making its way very slowly northeastwards. So driest conditions to the northeast of this with the best of the sunshine across Scotland. A little bit of respite from the showers across the southwest before this next system makes its way in as we go into Tuesday afternoon. And still feeling pretty pleasant in the sunshine. Always cooler though across Scotland with those northerly winds bringing that cooler air.
This is very interesting. So there is an airline, United Airlines, in America, and they've got 2 former flight attendants who are suing them. And basically, the flight attendants say that United, like cabin crew that look a certain way.
So used to be like that here.
It used to be like that. It used to be, for instance, British Airways had a whole makeup school that they would, they would send you to how to do your lipstick and your eyeshadow and all those sort of things, which incidentally are the sort of things that people were asking me about you.
Oh, really?
Yes.
My lipstick and my eyeshadow.
They used to say, have you got anything belonging to Isabel? And I said, hold on to a see here. If I've got it. Why would I have anything? So then this guy said to me, like, do you have anything like her eyelash curlers or her mascara or whatever?
Sure, I can send you some mascara.
And I think you get a lot for it. And I could go on.
I got another career but there's somewhere.
There's parts of you that are worth money.
Well, there we go.
There could be. Anyway, what's your view now? Cabin crew. See me in cabin crew. Yeah. I love cabin crew. I love cabin crew, right? And I think they have a very tough job. and I spend a lot of time talking to cabin crew. And I just wonder, though, do you think, cabin crew, that your standards have slipped? Do you think that... No,
as in appearance-wise?
As in appearance-wise. This is not me saying this.
What was that movie with Leonardo DiCaprio, you know, when he was a fraudster? Catch Me If You Can.
Yeah.
And that really showed. They just went into high school, picked the hottest girls, they were all sleeping together. It was all very glamorous, and, yeah, it's just not like that anymore.
Doors to manual and cross-check.
Don't start with that again.
What do you think of cabin crew and the way they appear, and how their appearance declined over recent years? And should it be up to the passengers? Like, for instance, this is whatever the Dodgers are. I don't know if they're a football team or a baseball team or something, or basketball team, but the Dodgers particularly like a certain type of cabin crew person.
Oh, really?
That they specify on their chartered flights.
Do that, not in 2023. Maybe Perez Hilton will have a view on that. We'll chat to him in just a minute, because we are now.
So your view on that.
Your view on that. And we're also going to be talking all through the programme this morning about the big but sad news over the weekend of the sudden death of the Friends star and comedian Matthew Perry. This was in LA at his home over the weekend.
He was born in 1969, 10 years younger than me. I was just looking at the whole thing. He grew up in Canada. Yeah, but it was in Los Angeles that he became a household name for his portrayal of Chandler Bing in the sitcom Friends.
Well, the star, who's believed to have passed away in his hot tub at his LA home on Saturday afternoon, as we know, faced a lifelong battle with substance abuse, which he opened up about in his 2021 memoir, Friends, Lovers, and the Big Terrible Thing, that being his addiction problem.
So he was just 24 when Friends went global, and he became one of the most watched shows of all time. Today, Friends is still widely loved thanks to streaming platforms. It's never off in our house. I've never watched a single episode.
I cannot believe that, because I think I've watched it start to finish at least 6 times. It's one of my all-time favourites, and I think it was just such fantastic writing.
Well, Ruth has it on. It's on all the time.
Old friends, literally like old friends in the house.
Well, despite the struggles throughout Perry's own life, he managed to bring laughter to millions worldwide, and he'll be remembered as the awkward, quirky comedy actor who brought one of TV's most loved characters to life.
Well, let's speak to the American blogger and columnist Perez Hilton. A very good morning to you. Not sure what the time is where you are, but so many of our big stars die too young, and he just is another one of those. It's such terrible news.
Well, I don't think Hollywood is responsible for his death. I think it's addiction, and the same fate may have happened if he was just a very wealthy person or even a very poor person. You know, Matthew himself, in his memoir, he mentioned in 2021, he said he should not be alive. And he also mentioned that if he were to die, that people would be shocked but not surprised. And I'm also not surprised that we haven't heard from the main cast members of Friends, because they really were friends. And more than that, they were like a family. And I expect and predict that they will release a statement jointly, because that's how they were. You know, if you remember back in the 90s, they were the exception to the rule. You know, the sitcom stars would all negotiate independently to try to get as much money as possible. But the cast of Friends did this thing called favored nations, where they negotiated as a group and they all got paid the same. And I think, you know, we're spending so much time talking about Matthew Perry because back in the 90s, early 2000s, Friends was so massive that you can't compare it to today. Millions of viewers, and it spanned generations. So he really had fans from very old people to very young people.
And Perez, were you one of those fans? I just want to say, my friend, it is lovely talking to you. We're having difficulty with your microphone occasionally, so it just keeps going. You talk like we have these things called Daleks here in Doctor Who, and you're talking like a Dalek for 10 seconds or so, then it goes away. But tell me this, my friend. Were you one of the fans? I honestly say, to my shame, I'm obviously aware of who Matthew Perry is. I don't know what he did. I don't know what made him so good, because I've never watched a single episode of Friends.
Don't worry, I was a big enough fan for both of us.
Yeah, I can see that. Were you a fan?
I think everyone in America was a fan, especially people of a certain age. I was in high school and college when the show aired, so I was obsessed with it.
Yeah.
And it was this phenomenon where they weren't just big on the show, because you can have actors that are on a successful TV show and nobody cares about their private lives. These were all on the front covers of the celebrity magazines, all of the actors every week. And sometimes their personal lives bled over into the show. Like, I love that episode of Friends where Brad Pitt made a guest star appearance. And every week they had tons of guest stars that were really big celebrities. And it was truly called must-see TV. That was the slogan on NBC here.
Yeah, I can imagine that. Perez, just before we say goodbye to you, and listen, it's great having you on. I hope you come on our show again.
Yeah,
now that you've discovered us, you know where we are. And I know it's very unsociable for you, but it'd be lovely to get you on quite regularly. But I was just talking about these United Airlines former cabin crew who are suing United Airlines because they feel they were discriminated against.
Not looking hot enough.
Because the way they were, well,
that's the complaint.
That's the complaint.
LA Dodgers.
Against the Dodgers, whatever. The Dodgers basically liked a certain type of cabin crew assistant on their plane. Do you think these women have a point? Do you think it matters what your cabin crew look like as long as they can do their job, or should they have a certain standard, if you're with me, in terms of looks and dress?
You know, I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not sure what the legalities are, but this makes the contrarian in me say, I wish that the cabin crew for the Dodgers was exclusively gay men.
I love it.
Good answer, good answer. Stay in touch. Thank you, Perez Hilton.
Really interesting.
Thank you very much. Well, that's a nonsense.
No, maybe not. But
he's not the greatest comedian
well,
of all
I spent
time.
a lot yesterday reading some of his extracts from his book about how 2 in 10 of the jokes that he submitted to the writers were actually put into the show. And they were the top writers in the country at the time. And Perez was saying that no tributes have come yet from the other 5 cast members, but probably the closest to them, the co-creators, Marta Kaufman and David Crane, those names were so famous, weren't they, written across the screen, have put out their joint statement saying, we are shocked and deeply, deeply saddened by a beloved friend Matthew's passing, but they pay tribute to his jokes and his writing. They say, we will always cherish the joy, the light, the blinding intelligence he brought to every moment, not just his work, but in life as well. He will always be the funniest person in the room. What a thing to say.
Yeah.
More than that, he was the sweetest with a giving and selfless heart. And I thought that was a really lovely tribute.
Yeah, in a world of anger and hatred and spite and whatever, it's nice when you can bring laughter. Certainly is. Talking about that, Paul Coit with the sport. Next.
Not a laughing matter, though, is it?
Who is it? We're here for the show.
More energy this time!
Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie. Second best. You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these 3.
Ah!
No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sunday, the 29th of October at 9 on GB News.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamonn.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6 is Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute. Kick it up a gear with me, Patrick Christie's, at Drive Time, 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+, on the smart speaker app and on the GB News app. And if you've got an Alexa, all you have to say is, Alexa, play GB News. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with me, Patrick Christie's, on GB News and GB News Radio.
Well, let's get this out of the way. Paul Coit, Manchester United 0, Manchester City 3, a match at Old Trafford where United were just made to look like a local pub team, basically, against City, I thought, as a supporter.
I agree. Manchester City were really good. Manchester United were bad. See, I don't know where we're looking with Eric.
I don't think particularly Man United were bad. I just think they were just not in the same class.
Yeah.
I think City, the way they passed, the way they played with the ball, the joy that they had in doing what they did, and they started scoring goals for fun, basically.
Well, yeah, I mean, we can look at that. We know how good Manchester City are, but I still think Manchester United could have given more. I just don't think...
Are you a Ten Hag fan?
You know, I've flip-flopped all the way through the whole Ten Hag reign. When he came in, and I'm saying, no, this is never going to work. It's never going to work. Then there was the Brentford game when they got very badly beaten, turned it around, he got the players on board. But the thing is, for me, I just don't see it's going to work with Ten Hag because it is a balancing act. You know what players are like. You know, they're all spoilt kids. I mean, and you've got to get it right. And if you do treat them badly, for example, like the Jadon Sancho situation, if we talk about Ronaldo, everybody's going, well, that's it. You've got to stand up to them. You've got to tell them who's boss. But if they decide that they're not going to play for you and they don't like the way you're handling it, then you're on a hiding to nothing and it's never going to work.
Well, the signings are interesting. We brought on a guy called Mason Mount, who we chased from Chelsea for 60 million quid or whatever, plus add-ons.
Hasn't been very good.
I don't know what he does. I genuinely don't know what he does or what position he plays in or whatever, but he was like anonymous on that pitch yesterday. However, we could go on and on and on about that. It was good news, though, again, from Villa. I think they're managed very well. They were playing Luton, of course, and Liverpool, again, they were playing Forest, so those were two gimmies, really.
Well, if we look at Aston Villa and Unai Emery, who's the manager there, who's come in. And
he's a good manager.
He didn't do well at Arsenal. He didn't really get long enough. Then went to Spain, came back again to Aston Villa. See, that shows that a team that is doing really badly, you get the right manager in, things can change. It's the same as
Postecoglou. Spurs,
same thing.
Very
so maybe Eric Ten Hag, you know, we go back to Manchester United, but anyway, they beat Luton 3-1. They've won their last 12 home games on the bounce, Aston Villa, so very good. Everton on the turn as well. They beat West Ham 1-0. I know your two newspaper guests will not be too happy for me to talk about that.
Yeah.
But Liverpool, I mean, the big story, and Izzy, I'm sure you've heard about this, about Luis Diaz. This is Luis Diaz, Liverpool player. His parents were kidnapped.
It was terrible.
Back in Colombia.
Yeah.
Now, this happened on Saturday night, so...
Did he play?
No, he didn't play. No, he didn't play. I mean, how could he? And there he is there.
So his mother's been handed back, but...
Yes. I don't know whether it's actually handed back. I think it was because she was rescued. I don't think it's a matter of being handed back, but there's a £50,000 reward. But I don't know where the whole story is, as in, is it ransom money? I guess so. They're saying that the dad has been moved now from Colombia. They think he's gone to Venezuela. I mean, it's a horrendous story.
Ghastly.
Obviously, there's so much money in football, and they're just thinking, well, you know what, we can take advantage of that. We'll take the parents and see what we can get out of it. So how it's going to end, well, we keep our fingers crossed, but it's a horrible story.
Let's go from a horrible story to a very lovely story. Max Verstappen.
Max Verstappen wins again. It's not really a surprise, is it? We were talking about Manchester City, 16th win. There he is. Now, look, now, can you guess from the hat the Grand Prix he was taking? It's the Mexican Grand Prix.
He's wearing a sombrero.
He is in the sombrero. Look, there's the helmet there. I prefer the sombrero. Do you know why the sombrero is so wide, by the way?
Why?
To keep the sun off your head.
That's right. It's not only to keep the sun off your head, but the reason the sombrero is... This is still sport and pastimes. The sombrero is so wide, it makes a huge shadow...
Of your whole body.
Over your entire body.
Genius.
So that's the reason for the sombrero. So it may not look great, but...
I think it looks great as well.
Do you think so?
Yeah.
He wears it well.
Do you remember the Mexican World Cup?
Yes.
Mexico, so much to see and so much to do, the greatest show. Come and watch the
Yes, the
football
song
in Mexico.
failed.
I don't know this song.
You don't need it.
Mexico.
70, this is 70 World Cup, yeah.
No.
Or 86.
It was England, yeah.
Well, they played, it was Mexico in 70.
Yes, you're right. Yes.
Yeah, Mexico 70.
Yes, well, you don't remember.
That's
You weren't born.
Because not at all.
No.
Have we got time for one more quick one?
Yeah.
There's one I should squeeze in. Kimberly Garcia from Peru. I really feel for Kimberly Garcia from Peru. She was in the Pan American Games, obviously a big event, and she's in the women's walk, the 20K walk. So anyway, she's done amazingly well. Smashed the world record, absolutely smashed the world record, until she realised that there were also 11 others behind her that also smashed the world record in the 20K walk.
Bit of a coincidence.
What do you think?
Or something wrong.
What went wrong? Can you tell there's foul play? There's foul play. They'd measured it wrong.
Oh, right.
17 kilometres.
Well, that's fairly innocent then.
Yeah, well, it's a bit stupid, though, isn't it?
Well, it's a bit stupid. So instead, the 20 kilometres was actually only 17.
17K.
It wasn't like it was 19 and a half.
No, 17K.
Yeah.
So she's crossed the line. She's thinking, I've smashed the world record by minutes. This is unbelievable. She's celebrating. Everybody else is coming through. They're like, we can't believe we've broken the world record as well. But, of course, it was 17K. So she keeps the gold medal, but unfortunately the gold medal...
Doesn't count.
Good man. Thank you. Come back and see us in an hour's time.
Still to come, we're asking, can artificial intelligence decipher matters of the heart? Hope not. That's next.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. Join me, Mark Dolan, Fridays and Saturdays from 9, Sundays from 10. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
There's only 3 people you can trust in life. Your doctor, your lawyer, and your nana.
I'm not sure.
So join me, Nana Aquare, at 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday, where we discuss the biggest topics of the weekend. Be ready for battle.
Could you be quiet? What is this? It's my new teeth.
It's your new teeth. I don't bite. Well, not without a good reason. Always honest, always fun. Every weekend at 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real, robust debate. Both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Wherever you're waking up this morning, the time is approaching 6:45. You're tuned into breakfast on GB News. Eamonn, Holmes and Isabel, Webster.
And here's a reminder of our top stories this morning. Civil order in Gaza is breaking down as Israeli tanks are pouring over the border, continuing their ground assault to dismantle Hamas. Israeli Benjamin Netanyahu has labelled Gaza the stronghold of evil. That's as world leaders express their concern over getting aid into the Strip.
A whiff of rebellion within the Labour Party over Sir Keir Starmer's position on the conflict as senior Labour frontbenchers, plead for a ceasefire.
And coming up later in the programme, Rishi Sunak is planning to double down on the so-called anti-green policies in his King's speech by announcing further expansion of North Sea oil and gas exploration, as well as pro-car policy. So we ask, is it right to prioritise cheaper energy bills over saving the planet?
Right, we've got two not too happy bunnies, two West Ham supporters yesterday in the studio. Dawn Neeson is one of them. Very good to see her. And straight in from his night job as a porter top London hotel. I mean, why are you wearing that uniform?
This is on the buses, mate. I'm on the buses.
On the buses.
Yeah, ding ding.
Yes.
Tickets, please.
Yes.
I think you look really dapper today, and I
yes,
like
if he was working on the buses.
Yeah, you look very, very respectful.
Bless you, bless you. Thank you very much, Isabel. You
First
and
thing
I
I
were on
said
together.
this morning.
You did, yeah. Got the colour coordination going on.
Yeah. And I just want to say that as it's nearly Halloween, I think you look very dapper and very Dracula-like in that. So, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And I've come as the pumpkin, obviously.
Oh, yeah, you have.
Always liked the uniform, though, Chris, so you did, so it always suited you. Exactly. There you go. Guys, let's have a look at what you're going to discuss, read the headlines today. No, we're not doing beer campaigners now. We're not starting with that one. You picked one to start with.
OK, well, let's start, Chris, with the Daily Express front page, and they're talking about the Middle East being on a precipice and fears about this wider conflict. Iran warning that Israel's onslaught against Gaza may force everyone to retaliate.
Yeah. OK, so, look, there's an Igbo saying, don't talk what you don't know. So I'm quite clear that I do not know the details of the conflict.
Mate, don't even apologise for that. And I'm going to go on about this. Journalists, people like us, they sit there and they go and they use the word of course, the words of course. Of course, the situation in Gaza and this. People don't know. They have no idea. They hardly know what goes on in their own constituency. Okay. And I speak, as you will know, about the Northern Ireland conflict. Correct. Part of the United Kingdom, no one understood what was going on at all. So why should they know? Why should they know?
Absolutely. No, 100% no. And that's the position I want to take. So when I'm talking about this now, I'm not taking a side of Israel, I'm not taking a side of Hamas. What I am very much understanding is, just as a human being, that what is going on in that geographical location right now is a nightmare out of sight of all proportions. Now, what this Ibrahim Razi is now saying is that the ground troops and tanks have crossed red lines as far as he is concerned. Ibrahim Razi is the president of Iran. So not the carpet bombing, not the indiscriminate killing of Palestinian civilians that's happened over the last 3 weeks, but the tanks going in. Now, for me over the last 3 weeks, what I've wanted is, if you want to go in and get Hamas, go in and get Hamas. And yes, it's going to risk your lives, and I understand that. I was a soldier, and I understood that if I was doing the Queen's bidding back then, I was in the Queen's Army, the King's Army now, that if I was sitting to an area of conflict, I was doing the country's bidding. For me, the tanks and the IDF going in on the ground, that is the right thing to do if you are wanting to eliminate the area of Hamas. But the rest of stuff I've seen this week has been just absolutely blood-curdling. And I've got 2 children, and I'm a dad, and I've looked at my children, and I've tried to imagine a scenario where I'm helpless to defend my children.
He's also feeling, Don, from a point of view that, and I think you're very right in this, Chris, that you can't express these are the goodies, these are the baddies, when there is such just murder going on.
We were talking about football this morning in a light-hearted way, because obviously West Ham fans, Man United fans disappointed, but this isn't a football match. You don't have to pick a side. What you do have to know is that lots of innocent civilians are dying, have died. I mean,
4,000 children.
Yeah, the latest statistics from Palestine are over 8,000 people dead. As you say, Chris, nearly 4,000 of them are children. It's a very young population. Most of these people didn't even vote in the elections that brought Hamas into power back in 2006. It's just hard. And the one thing, I mean, the power is back up now with the communications, but over the weekend, the power went down. They took all the communications down. You couldn't phone, you couldn't text, you couldn't get hold of anyone.
But you've still got a situation where Israel, and they have 1,800 people murdered 3 weeks ago.
Which is awful.
But their enemy, hides under hospitals. They have tunnels around people. They hide in full sight of the populace, 2 million people.
Well, we saw
there.
the Israeli press conference, I think it was on Friday night or Saturday, about the Al-Shifa hospital, which is the main hospital in Gaza City. And they demonstrated how, according to them, there is a Hamas base underneath the hospital and also embedded in the hospital itself. So the question there is, how do you handle that situation? I mean, Chris, you're a soldier. You've been in conflict areas. I mean, what...
Well, you've got special forces. You've got special forces. You go in on the ground and you actually incisively eliminate the people that you were talking about. You don't, from my perspective, you don't carpet bomb a locality where you are sure going to eradicate innocent human beings.
Yeah.
You know, if you are talking about Hamas, go and get them.
It just seems to me like an impossible conundrum, because you totally and utterly can see that the maiming, the beheading of babies by Hamas is unacceptable, and it is an existential threat to Israel that Hamas have said they do not want it to exist. And yet you also have reports of doctors over the weekend saying they're doing amputation after amputation on children, young as 2, 4.
And doctors being told
what do they? And they're the lucky ones.
But the doctors have been told also they've got to get out of the hospital, and they're having to choose between the idea of my job is to take care of sick people. I can't run up, because if I run away from these 6 people, these 6 people who can't get out of bed are going to get obliterated.
Yeah. And then you get Israel saying, we're going to bomb this hospital because Hamas are hiding under it. Where do you move the people that you're talking to? What country? What, to Egypt, to Syria, to Israel? Where do you suddenly...
There are no crossings open at the moment, are there? I mean, there are people who were, you know, just a few weeks ago were living in ordinary homes, ordinary flats, ordinary houses like we live in. They had television, they had electricity. And now these families are on the border, living literally in under rubble, trying to survive. There's no food. The UN is saying as well that people are breaking into the food storage warehouse, the limited supplies there are.
I understand.
Yeah, and one of the papers, I don't know which one it is, I mean, I think it's the Time. The civil unrest in Gaza is about to break out.
But you understand that disorder, don't you? I mean, I certainly would fight for the resources. If I'm in this building and there's no resources, I'm going to fight everybody in this building to feed my family.
Totally understand that.
But listen, there's so many other stories, and I just want to change. Let's just change the mood, because life is just depressing enough. Dogs can smell the time.
Yes.
Explain to me how and why.
Right, OK, this is the front page of the Daily Star, which is doing what it is on earth to do, try and cheer people up. So it's got, on the front page, it's got a headline called Whiff, Whiff, Woof. Now, I don't actually understand that headline, but that's probably just me being thick. It is a Monday morning after all. However, your dog, your pet dog, knows what time you'll get home because they can tell the time by smell.
Gosh.
Now, the actual facts behind this, it's research done in, where is it done? In America. Dogs are such sensitive smellers that they learn that your scent diminishes during the day when you go out to work, and then they know that when you're coming back, because it's diminished to such an extent, and from previous weeks they know, well, actually, you could be back about this time because the smell now is decreased so much that you're about to come back. So it's the smell, you know, like when you smell really strong coffee, it decreases during the day. It's similar to that. So the dogs know that the smell has decreased so much since you went out this morning that it's about time for Dad or Mum to come back.
That's amazing.
Yeah, but it's not like so that's one unitary piece of information. There are so many ways a dog absolutely knows. So a dog, for example, can smell you coming back as well. A dog can smell you from like 400 yards away. A dog can also hear the other people, you know, so like if the postman walks past at 3, I've just heard that clip, clop, clop, clop. Senses, in 20 minutes' time, my master comes back too, because every day I've heard that. So there's some, and one thing I like about the story is the realisation that we as human beings, we've got our 5 senses, but we are so limited in our experience of being in the world that this dog has got such a vast
Aren't their
experience.
noses something like 70 times more powerful?
I think it's 400
but
or
if you think
something.
about it, like, you can smell the morning. If you step outside, you could probably guess if you were blindfolded what time of day it was. You could probably smell the evening. You could probably guess when it's the middle of the day. enhance that by whatever many times it is.
Yeah,
It makes sense.
What always amazes me about dogs is how they can smell things like cancer on you. You hear so many stories about sort of like where they're sniffing a part of the body.
I worry every morning my dog comes and licks my legs and feet.
Oh, bless.
Listen, but what have I got?
That's
something?
just love.
No.
Sure.
But will be something. It might not be something sinister. I mean, So dogs, many tools are showing love, of showing concern, of showing excitement. So. I don't know what that interpretation is, but it may not be something sinister.
Could just be salty, and they like the taste.
It could also.
might just be. Guys, thank you very, very much indeed. Also amazes me how my dog can smell when it's near home. I don't know how it does that, but it smells. All sorts of things like that. We'll be sniffing around a lot of stories for you after this break. Don't go away.
Good morning, my name's Rachel Ayres and welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast brought to you by the Met Office. So we saw plenty of rain and showers throughout the weekend and not a huge amount of change as we go into the new week. Heavy showers that could be thundery across southern parts of Wales and England as we go through this morning, with that overnight rain having cleared away from Scotland and northeast England. Some sunny spells around as well, especially across Scotland and central and eastern parts of England. And it'll feel pretty pleasant here, especially away from the coast where those winds are a little bit lighter. So highs of 14 to 16 in the south. They're a little bit cooler in the north with those northerly winds. Now, as we go through this afternoon, we'll see further showers continuing, but this band of showers will become a little bit more organised into this evening and bringing some heavy and persistent rain to Northern Ireland. So there could be some disruption here. Plenty of clear spells, though, ahead of this, especially across southern England and Scotland. And a bit of a chilly night across Scotland as well. Could be a touch of frost in some sheltered rural spots. So to start Tuesday then, we'll see this band of organised showers making its way very slowly northeastwards. So driest conditions to the northeast of this with the best of the sunshine across Scotland. A little bit of respite from the showers across the southwest before this next system makes its way in as we go into Tuesday afternoon. And still feeling pretty pleasant in the sunshine. Always cooler though across Scotland with those northerly winds bringing that cooler air.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
There's only 3 people you can trust in life. Your doctor, your lawyer, and your nana.
I'm not sure.
So join me, Nana Aquare, at 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday, where we discuss the biggest topics of the weekend. Be ready for battle. Could you be quiet? What is this?
It's on your teeth.
It's on your teeth. I don't bite. Well, not without a good reason. Always honest, always fun. Every weekend at 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Who is it? We're here for the show.
More energy this time!
Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie.
Second best.
You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these 3.
Oh! No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays at 9 on GB News.
Good morning. It's just about to turn 7 o'clock on Monday, the 30th of October. You're tuned in to Breakfast with Eamonn, Holmes and Isabel Webster.
Leading our news this morning as Israeli tanks pour over the border, continuing their ground assault to dismantle Hamas. Civil order in Gaza is breaking down. That's as world leaders express their concern over getting aid into the area. Mark White, let's go to him live. He's in Tel Aviv.
Well, just within the last few minutes, there has been a very significant rocket barrage from Gaza targeting Israeli forces around the Gaza Strip, proof that they still have significant capability despite the Israeli operations.
Mark, thank you. You stay safe.
A whiff of rebellion within the Labour Party ranks over Sir Keir Starmer's position on the Israel-Hamas conflict as senior Labour frontbenchers are pleading for a ceasefire. Our political correspondent Catherine Forster is in Westminster for us.
Yes, a real challenge to Sir Keir Starmer's authority as Labour mayors and more shadow frontbenchers openly defy the official Labour position and call for a ceasefire.
Meanwhile, Rishi Sunak's planning to double down on anti-green policies in the King's speech by announcing further expansion of North Sea oil and gas exploration, as well as pro-car policies. Is it right to prioritise cheaper energy bills over saving the planet? We'll be discussing that shortly.
And as always, Paul Coit will have the latest from the world of sport.
I do. There's two ways of doing this, so we'll try both. Manchester United lose the Manchester derby, or I could say that Manchester City win the Manchester derby. I'm just going to try and keep Eamonn happy.
Well, they were deserved winners. Okay. It hurt that it was at Old Trafford, but not even comparable was United to City. Okay. They played for fun. They passed that ball around. They scored for fun yesterday.
Only season, though. Things could change.
Yeah.
I don't really worry about Manchester United.
Why is this music going up and down in our ears? Just want to say this, it's happening all morning. 1 minute, there it is, it's gone. That's the best place to have it. It's gone, right.
Yeah, I'm an old disc jockey, you see, that's what you do. Yeah. Is up and down.
Up
see,
and down. Yeah.
Fading up bed.
Fading up, fading down,
I can tell you, see, we have artificial intelligence in here, or no intelligence, I'm not really sure which.
I was wondering where it was. I'm looking round for it.
Basically, this is my point, that you cannot trust artificial intelligence.
Right, OK, fine.
So we'll just, so I don't know if people at home hear what we hear, but we're being deafened by music, which gets me thinking, it's rather wet in here. Or it's rather hot in here.
That's the poshest version I've ever heard.
It's rather hot in here.
Yeah, it's not hot in here. Well, it is hot in here, but it's going to be wet out there, and Rachel Ayres has your forecast.
It may be a new week, but the unsettled theme in the weather is not going anywhere. Further showers and rain expected today with disruptive weather later in the week. Join me later for a full forecast with all the details.
Discussions today. Email what you want. I've been all over the country in the past 10 days or so, and it's been lovely to meet so many of you who watch and listen to the programme and who want Isabel mementos. That's what you want. People come as if, what part of you would I carry round with me when I go out and about? If you got anything belonging to Isabel? Oddly enough, no, I don't. What would you like?
I carry your things around with all the time.
But I don't carry your lipsticks or your...
But next time you hold one of your audience wids, I'll give you a parcel of goodies. What? I don't know, mascara apparently is what they want.
No, I don't think that's what they want.
He hasn't told me yet what they've been asking for, but he's implying that it could be a bit weird.
Well, depends. GBViews at gbnews.com, or you can tweet at GBnews. What of Isabel's would you like to have in
it's not necessarily available.
Your possession?
To say.
Thank you.
OK, leading the news this morning, Israeli armoured vehicles are continuing to pour into Gaza as their defence forces are beginning to take over the Strip piece by piece.
Soldiers spotted armed terrorists and an anti-tank missile launching post near the Al-Azhar University and guided an IAF fighter to strike those.
Well, the Palestinian Red Crescent say that Israel's asked them to immediately evacuate the Al-Quds hospital, but they're unable to do so. Israel say that one of Hamas's key operating centres lies directly beneath it in their network of tunnels.
So far, we hear 38 trucks carrying supplies have been allowed to enter Gaza from Egypt, just a day after hundreds raided a United Nations depot to take rations.
Well, in a surprise tweet from the Rafah crossing in Egypt, International Criminal Court prosecutor Karim Khan warned of the dire situation in Gaza and said he hoped to visit Gaza and Israel to investigate possible war crimes.
Independently looking at the situation in Palestine, we are looking at the events in Israel and the allegations that Palestinian nationals have also committed crimes. We need cooperation, we need assistance, but we're going to have the determination the stamina and the professionalism to make sure we separate allegation from fact.
Latest reports suggesting that Hamas is blocking the exit of foreign nationals from the Strip in order to extract concessions by Israel and Israeli allies.
Well, the fighting might be confined to the Holy Land, but its consequences are not. This footage from a Dagestani airport in Russia shows a crowd storming the terminal in apparent anti-Jew sentiment, seeking people arriving from Tel Aviv.
And absolutely scary to watch that one. Look at that. Look at that, this invasion of the terminal. And they were thinking that people are going to get off that flight. What were they going to do with them if they actually caught anybody? 60 arrests from security forces there to bring the situation under control. Israel responded to this by urging Russia to protect all its citizens and all Jews.
Well, let's cross live now to our security editor, Mark White, who's in Tel Aviv for us. You've had some breaking news in the last few moments of new raids, of new bombardments coming in from Gaza, Mark.
A very significant rocket barrage that's been aimed at IDF forces really all around the Gaza Strip. Now, this just goes to show you that despite the absolute pummeling that these Hamas positions have been taking in recent days from the Israeli Defense Forces, they still have the capability to pop up and to launch these rockets. And that's because there is such a sophisticated tunnel network, hundreds of miles in length, all around the Gaza Strip, but particularly in that area around the north, that although the Israeli Air Force and the ground forces and missiles can strike areas they believe are connected to the tunnel networks, there's just so many of these entrances and exits that are hidden away that Hamas can pop up, and they coordinate their strikes. They're clearly in communications. They have hardwired telephone systems right throughout the tunnel network so they can coordinate their strikes. They pop up in multiple locations at the same time and fire off their rockets. We haven't as yet had our usual morning barrage here in Tel Aviv, but it may well be coming. We haven't really had a day in the past 4 days when we haven't had a very significant barrage into Tel Aviv in the morning, and then that's usually repeated 2 or 3 times in the day. We have to say that the vast majority of these rockets are intercepted by the Iron Dome missile defence system. It is a highly effective system. Having said that, 1 or 2 rockets have got through in recent days, damaging buildings and causing injuries.
OK, Mark, thank you very much indeed.
Okay. Labour's infighting has continued throughout the weekend. The Shadow Science Secretary has claimed that Labour will not sack Shadow Cabinet members for rebelling against Keir Starmer's stance on the conflict.
But with a growing in-party divide over the issue, will the party's Blair-like poll lead soon be shattered?
Let's go to Catherine Forster on this one this morning. Catherine, the impression I'm getting here is that Labour mayors flexing their muscles. They're popular, they know they're popular, and they seem to be happy to take on the party leadership.
Yes, I think you're absolutely right in that, Eamonn. So we've seen the Mayor of Greater Manchester, Andy Burnham. He's a huge figure in the Labour Party and the self-styled King of the North. We've seen Sadiq Khan, the Mayor of London, and also Scottish Labour leader Anna Sarwar all come out over the last couple of days and call for an immediate ceasefire. Now, the official Labour position, Sir Keir Starmer is calling for a humanitarian pause. Peter Kyle was on broadcast media, he's the Shadow Science Minister, saying that really this is just dancing on the head of a pin, whether you call it a pause or a ceasefire, but there needs to be a huge focus now on getting aid into Gaza. I think it's worth noting that the Shadow Foreign Secretary David Lammy is beginning a 3-day trip to the Middle East today, starting in Jordan, also going to Qatar and Egypt. But certainly the unity that there was within the Labour Party when this conflict began back on October the 7th and in the days following is certainly disappearing. And as you say, the Labour mayors, the Scottish Labour leader, are big enough figures that they can really say what they want without fear of consequence. There's been a number of shadow frontbench figures, people like Jess Phillips, the shadow safeguarding minister, also come out calling for a ceasefire, but no resignations as yet of any shadow ministers. We've had council resignations, sure, but it seems like the Labour Party, Keir Starmer, has decided that basically people can take their own position. Peter Kyle says they're a broad church. I think that's partly because certainly they are a broad church, and partly because they know that this is a really difficult issue for the Labour Party. They don't want to make things any more difficult than they already are.
But Catherine, why is it difficult? Just spell out to people. We're talking about the difference between a pause and a ceasefire here. Who's asking for what? What does Starmer stand for? Mr. Flip-Flop, as they say, he treads a very thin line on this one. What is wanted? What is he saying?
Well, he and the Americans and the British government are all calling for a pause, a humanitarian pause or pauses, which suggests something very temporary, a very temporary stop to the bombing, a very temporary stop to further encroachment into Gaza, whereas a ceasefire that a lot of Labour figures are now calling for, and indeed the United Nations General Assembly passed a non-binding vote on Friday calling for a ceasefire, implies something much longer, though we know that ceasefires can begin and end in a matter of hours. So in some ways, this is just semantics, but I think it does show that obviously Sir Keir Starmer has brought the Labour Party on a big journey from under Jeremy Corbyn, where it had a huge problem with anti-Semitism. It's had a zero tolerance approach for that, and it wants to show its support for Israel, but at the same time there are increasing concerns among Labour and indeed the international community, as we've heard, about what is going on in Gaza and the very real impact on civilians.
As you say, it's a strange world we live in when calling for a ceasefire could be in any way portrayed or perceived as sort of hostility towards Israel. But given the history that you outlined there, you can understand why it's a difficult one for him. Can I ask you about the AI conference? This has been Rishi Sunak's big baby. He's been planning this all year. He wants to try and create some sort of international consensus on how to regulate it, and he wants to be leaders in all of that. And yet it seems as though pretty much no world leaders are coming, are they?
Yes, number 10 is a little bit prickly about the guest list. This summit is happening on Wednesday and Thursday in Bletchley Park, where the codebreakers worked famously during the Second World War. Now, we know who's not coming. President Biden is not coming. French President Emmanuel Macron is not coming. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz is not coming. That will be a bit of a blow. But Kamala Harris, the Vice President of the United States, is. Ursula von der Leyen, the European Commission President, and Antonio Guterres from the United Nations are coming. And what Rishi Sunak wants to do is show that the UK can lead the way on this, specifically on addressing the threats that he believes artificial intelligence potentially poses to all of us if it got to a point that it was able to basically supersede human control, and that it could potentially destroy us all. I think a lot of this is about messaging. He will hope that there will be some sort of joint statement about the dangers of AI and the need to work together that may come out of this at the end. There is a representative coming from China. There's some unhappiness with some Conservatives who feel that China should not be on the invite list in the first place. Right. But also the government have announced £2 million this morning for AI to support education. Not a lot of money, many people would say, but they will say that that's something.
Ridiculous amount of money. Not a lot. Catherine, thank you very much indeed. We're going to be discussing about that not a lot of money very shortly. Cabin crew, 2 cabin crew in the USA are taking United Airlines to court because they think they weren't up to the requirements that United wanted in terms of looks and their figure and all that sort of thing as well. Lisa, good morning, Lisa. My daughter qualified earlier this year as cabin crew. She's now 20. I'm so super proud of her. In her first 6 months, she's had to deal with passengers who were rude, spraying aerosol, vaping, being homophobic. This is the whole thing. The public, you know that saying, the public are always right. I mean, funny, on my roadshow, the audience with thing, I tell stories of when I used to work in Primark, and the public are terrible, ghastly. They are ghastly people, and if you're a part of the public, forgive me, but you are. If you work in shops and things, and I was checking into a hotel the other day, right? So in front of me, there's this very well-dressed man, businesslike. And she says, I'd like a room. And the girl said to him, when would you like the room? I'd like it, but only for this afternoon. And she went, oh, right. He said, right. So she started looking up, and I'm thinking,
Sounds good. Go for a nap.
It's not what he's going for.
Good.
Well, when he sees some right...
So innocent.
Wait a minute. Really well, this is what he does next, right?
Oh, no.
She says, that'll be £120 or whatever. And he goes, I'm paying in cash. And she said, we don't take cash. She said, well, I'm only paying in cash.
Oh, right. So he doesn't want a paper trail, doesn't want his wife to see what he's up to.
Exactly what I thought, Isabel.
Don't give people ideas.
So I thought, that's a good idea.
Shh, don't listen.
But I thought he was insistent. He was the creepiest looking,
It's worse.
And then he went in, and then this next one came, and he had an argument with the girl. And he said, I've checked out, I wanted a late checkout here today, and I'm just being charged for checking out at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And she says, but you didn't request a late checkout. He said, I did request a late checkout, and whatever. And I said to the girl behind the counter after, I said, look, if you don't mind me saying so, I thought he really believed that he requested a late checkout. And she said, look, he's a regular. He pulls this one all the time.
Really?
He does all this. Gosh. So, just 2 short examples. Another true story there of people who the public are foul. God, there's probably people this morning, Isabel, sitting saying they don't like us.
Well, no, not Mags in Manchester.
They like me, but they don't like you.
I'm glad you're back together. Don't you be making eyes at the camera. This is what you say I do. I saw that wink. As for cabin crew, says Mags, we flew back from Gib, I presume that's Gibraltar, last Friday. Some of the stewards looked frankly harassed, spread too thinly, not enough time to slap the slap.
Right.
And also, you said they might not be happy to see us. Well, actually, let me find this lovely email. Oh, it's quickly fallen down there. Watching you this morning. You're the best in the business. There you go.
Was that you singular or you plural?
These two.
Well, how do you know it's you plural?
Well, I'm trying to find it. It was at 6:40. Here we go. Just want to say these 2 are the best in the biz. I miss them when they're not on. And Paul Coit is excellent too.
Okay.
Well, we'll send you some cash in the post, Martin Walker. Thanks very much.
A lot of people who are on strike for the past year are vital, very vital to the public sector, and this is over pay and over conditions, and all of this has been going on for the past year or so. We are now going to Northern Ireland because at midnight, vets in Northern Ireland walked out, and this is going to cause lots of problems, particularly in supermarkets, because it affects the food sector.
Indeed, but most importantly, in the ports where the controversial framework document's only been operating from the start of October.
I would really love to say that I'd been talking to the Secretary of State about the impact this is going to have. I've written to him on 4 occasions seeking a meeting, and I've yet to be offered a meeting. So I haven't had the opportunity to tell the Secretary of State the impact it's going to have. Our members are fully aware of the impact it's going to have. We know that it's going to have a substantial impact on the food industry. We are not targeting this at food producers. We are very clearly not targeting food producers. We're not targeting farmers. We're this action is to bring it to the attention of decision makers to say civil servants have had enough. They perform a very valuable role throughout the economy here, and to be treated in the way that they have been treated, you know, it's insulting. They feel that the derisory pay award they have received from a Secretary of State who has imposed a punitive budget on public sector workers, it needs to be lifted. Their view is this has to end, and they deserve a decent pay rise.
Well, it's going to cause significant disruption to our retail and wholesale members who use the SPS facilities moving goods through the red lane. So it's going to cause significant disruption, not just to them, but to the supply chain as well. And of course, the timing of the strike is so poor as well, with Windsor Accord just bedding in, and of course, at start of Christmas. So the timing is lousy, and the only way that we can stop these strikes is to make sure that there is agreement on the pay dispute, and we would call all sides to recommence the talks and get this sorted.
OK, that's the vet situation in Northern Ireland. Let's go to our man there, Dougie Beattie, this morning. Beside Dougie there's the Democratic Unionist Party MP for East Antrim, and that is Sammy Wilson. Over to you, Douglas.
Well, hello Eamonn, hello Isabel, and good morning to you, and welcome to Belfast Port. And of course, this is causing problems because of the framework document and because we have no government in Northern Ireland. But Sammy, I mean, is it really a problem of having no government in Northern Ireland?
No, it's not, because first of all, the Secretary of State could intervene as he has intervened in the past. Secondly, the vets have been asked to do extra work. There's been no extra money made available from London, and London is actually responsible for the additional work which has been required. So this is a London problem, it's not a Belfast problem, and it's one which the government has to sort out. They're responsible for the framework, they're responsible for the establishment of the border between Northern Ireland and GB, they're responsible for the checks which the vets are required to carry out, and they've got to carry the can for it.
Well, it is said, though, that they are prepared to sort of do retrospective checks. Would that not help the DUP back in the government?
Well, and here's the irony of it. We have been told that these border posts are essential to safeguard the EU single market. Checks have to be done before goods enter Northern Ireland in case they leak into the Republic. And now the government's saying, oh well, now we've got a problem, we don't have vets to do the inspections, etc. We'll just let the lorries through and we'll check them later on. If that's the case, then there's no need for a border. Why don't they just do retrospective checks all the time? That does away with the border. If the government's saying that retrospective checks are sufficient to safeguard the EU single market, then that's fine. I suspect, of course, that this situation will not be allowed to pertain for too long, because it's not the government that has the final say in this part of the United Kingdom, it's the EU. And I suspect that they'll be saying very soon, you can't do this.
Well, Eamonn, there you have it. And basically, there has been a derogation put in place for poultry to still be slaughtered. But the pigs in Northern Ireland, there will be real problems with that, because, as we've discussed before, the longer that pigs wait until they're slaughtered, the price of them actually drops, because there'll be too much fat on them as opposed to actual bacon. And that will cause problems for cash flows in amongst farms that are already very hard hit at this minute in time.
The intricacies, Dougie, you know, you and I talk about this off camera, and the intricacies for farmers, whether it's to do with cattle, whether it's to do with pigs or whatever, and these little things that make the difference, because the world is ruled by supermarkets.
Well, it is, and these lanes, of course, here that were put in place at the start of October, people said this was the framework document working in total, and of course it wasn't. This framework that has been put in place is only for supermarkets. The green lanes only represents goods that are travelling from point to point, and that suits supermarkets. But those in the red lanes that are independent retailers and indeed farmers will face the biggest challenges.
Good man. Thanks, Dougie. Got to leave it there, and thank you to Sammy as well. Cheers.
OK, take a look at what's coming up next. We will be going to a break, I'm hoping, or what have we got? Oh, a bulletin. Let's take a look at some of the other stories coming into the newsroom this morning. And chippies, kebab shops and other takeaways in Wales are facing increasing bills. This is as the Welsh Government's ban on disposable plastic cutlery and trays come into force on Monday. The Welsh Government says it will help tackle plastic waste, but some shop managers say the increasing price could drive customers away.
WhatsApp messages sent by Nicola Sturgeon and 70 Scottish Government figures relating to the COVID pandemic were not kept. It's believed that messages sent to the former Scotland First Minister were deleted from her phone. It comes after Scottish ministers faced criticism for not handing over their messages last week.
The Bar Council said more than 200 barristers across all criminal courts in Northern Ireland are walking out on the 17th of November over pay. The council says some lawyers have to wait for up to 6 months for payment after completing their work. The Department of Justice has branded the action as premature.
I was just looking there. I knew a couple of those lawyers.
Did you?
Yeah, not professionally, personally.
Oh, well, you need to pay them more regularly.
Is there anybody working in Northern Ireland? So the lawyers aren't working, the vets aren't working, the medics aren't working.
Politicians aren't working.
And then, most importantly, the politicians aren't working there. Let us know what you think. The weather situation, let's have a look.
Good morning, my name's Rachel Ayres and welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast brought to you by the Met Office. So we saw plenty of rain and showers throughout the weekend and not a huge amount of change as we go into the new week. Heavy showers that could be thundery across southern parts of Wales and England as we go through this morning, with that overnight rain having cleared away from Scotland and northeast England. Some sunny spells around as well, especially across Scotland and central and eastern parts of England. And it'll feel pretty pleasant here, especially away from the coast where those winds are a little bit lighter. So highs of 14 to 16 in the south, though a little bit cooler in the north with those northerly winds. Now, as we go through this afternoon, we'll see further showers continuing, but this band of showers will become a little bit more organised into this evening and bringing some heavy and persistent rain to Northern Ireland, so there could be some disruption here. Plenty of clear spells, though, ahead of this, especially across southern England and Scotland. And a bit of a chilly night across Scotland as well. Could be a touch of frost in some sheltered rural spots. So to start Tuesday then, we'll see this band of organised showers making its way very slowly northeastwards. So driest conditions to the northeast of this with the best of the sunshine across Scotland. A little bit of respite from the showers across the southwest before this next system makes its way in as we go into Tuesday afternoon. And still feeling pretty pleasant in the sunshine. Always cooler though across Scotland with those northerly winds bringing that cooler air.
Still to come, Paul Coit will be here. He'll have all the latest on why fans shouldn't give up on Premier League strugglers Manchester United. That's coming up.
Who is it? We're here for the show.
More energy this time!
Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie. Second best. You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these three.
Oh! No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays at 9 on GB News.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamonn.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute.
kick it up a gear with me, Patrick Christie's, at drive time, 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+, on the smart speaker app and on the GB News app. And if you've got an Alexa, all you have to say is, Alexa, play GB News. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with me, Patrick Christie's, on GB News and GB News Radio.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I. So you want higher taxes? Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you. Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
Delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train.
Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa! Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
Here's what's happening. We're going to have a debate now about climate and the cost to us all. Ahead of the King's speech, Rishi Sunak is going to double down on anti-green policies by announcing North Sea oil and gas exploration, as well as pushing more pro-car policies. And that immediately gives me the heebie-jeebies. There are too many cars in this country, and no politician will have the guts to say, stop making them, because it means jobs in certain constituencies and whatever. But end of story. It doesn't matter if you make them electric or whatever else goes into them. It doesn't matter. There are just too many of them. There can be millions and billions more electric cars. We still won't be able to move around the place. Too many cars. Take my word for it.
Yeah, so these anti-green measures, if you like, are going to be sold as a package to bring down energy bills this winter. But is it right to prioritise cheaper energy bills over saving the planet? That's our debate this morning, and we're talking to the head of policy at Net Zero Watch, Harry Wilkinson, as well as...
we've got lecturer in natural sciences at Bangor University. It's Christian Dunn. Very good to have both of you. Christian, in fairness, I think a lot of people know the argument that where you're coming from. So I'm going to start with Harry, and then you take on whatever Harry's going to say. Harry, why would you say, yes, we should put the cost of living ahead of saving the planet?
Well, when you look at net zero at the moment, it's a legally binding target, which means we're obliged to meet these climate targets.
Well, it's only legally binding because we have made it legally binding, but we're going to unlegal it. Forget that.
Well, that's true, but it means that priority becomes ahead of other considerations. You know, people want to help the planet, they want to get emissions down, but also if we impoverish people on the journey to getting there, then what we'll see is that people will be turned off by the green agenda, and they'll be really struggling.
Has he got a point there, Christian?
I think turning people off the green agenda is a real issue here. And I think when you have the actions of people like Just Stop Oil, they don't do for me, and I don't think they do the cause any good at all. I think what we're seeing here is just kicking the can down the road. I mean, we know that we have to stop burning fossil fuels. That's just a given. We know that the climate is changing. So by the government kind of allowing more of the oil drilling in the North Sea, we're not really solving the problem. We're just letting another generation sort it out. What we should be doing is addressing the problem now with investment in other technologies and obviously renewables, but nuclear as well. We have to be looking at this. We can't just be a quick stopgap of getting some more oil out the ground.
But Christian, you know why it is a quick stopgap, because they all pee their pants that they're going to lose votes and lose their seats and lose whatever election that comes up. So let's just, just say to people, yes, we're your friend, we're on your side, and it's very short-termism. I honestly feel, I even feel now, where do you go for holidays that you're not going to be involved in a forest fire or something awful or an earthquake goes on or whatever? I think it's a very scary situation. So you can see why they're doing it, Christian.
I can, without a doubt. I think, though, and I think it's all very easy for us in Britain, nice to comfortable middle-class people. It's all very nice, and it's not really a problem that's affecting us right now. We know it's going to affect us in the past, in the future, but not right now. But I work in Vietnam, and there you have farmers in the Mekong Delta who their livelihoods are being affected now, today, because of climate change, exacerbated by climate change. There are other factors as well, but their issues are being exacerbated by climate change. You look at Florida, billions of pounds have been spent on the Everglade restoration, billions of dollars. But this is now being undermined because of sea level rise. Climate change is affecting areas in the world right now. In Britain, okay, it gets the climate is a bit different. We get a few extreme weathers. The seasons come a bit differently. But how is it affecting many of us? I'd argue probably not that much, but it will do. And we have to start addressing that now, not just let another generation deal with it.
So, Harry, how do you come back to that? Do you accept the argument, then, that perhaps you're just kicking the can down the road and ignoring the fact that it's probably affecting other people in other places more than us at this point?
Well, climate change is affecting us now. However, we've never been safer from the climate. 100 years ago, millions of people were dying because of extreme weather events, and that's come down dramatically because of economic improvements. Actually, we see that when we prioritise economic growth, we become safer, and it's people in the developing world who need that economic growth more than anyone. So by prioritising cost of living, both here in the UK, but also around the world, economic considerations, we can make sure that we're much better prepared to deal with climate change in the future. The poorest, even here in the UK, struggle to heat their homes in the winter. That means people are actually dying in the cold in the winter in this country each year. And that's tragic. And if we can see people supported with that, supported with the cost of energy, then, we will see people much better prepared.
Christian, can I just ask you what you make of this kind of argument that it's one or the other, that, you can either save the planet or you can help people on a budget who are struggling financially? It seems to me that a lot of green ideas are actually not expensive. The idea, if you can't afford to heat your home, you put on a couple of extra jumpers, you recycle, you consume less, you fly less, you eat less, you buy less. All of that is actually good for the planet and good for your purse. Does it have to be one versus the other?
I don't think it can't be one or the other if we're going to actually make a real difference. And I think we also have to think so much more differently, societally differently, when it comes to addressing the climate issue. For our planning permissions, when we have new developments, we should be looking at making sure that they has micro-generation on all of those properties, all those new supermarkets that are going up. We have to start thinking differently about this because, exactly as you're saying, we can't let it hit people's pockets. We have to look at it as in a positive way. Using nuclear power, potentially, that could be an incredibly positive thing if we can do it right. And that does not just in the UK. We could then use that, as Harry is saying, in developing parts of the world as well. There's so much we can do to improve the climate, but also improve people's livelihoods. And if we get that balance right, then we're on to a winner.
Fascinating listening to you. Thank you. And Harry, thank you very much indeed for your argument. I sort of sense between you there may be some common ground there. Thank you both very much indeed. And just to say, Isabel, that it doesn't have to be always at each other's throat. You can still want to do good things for the planet and still help people who can't pay their bills at the minute as well.
Absolutely. Well, on that note, let's try and introduce Paul Quinn. I'm laughing because I don't really know how to do...
Someone that can't pay their bills, is that what you're saying?
No, I was just trying to think of a way to lighten it, and then I remembered Man United.
She's trying to say Manchester is blue. That's what she's trying to say.
Is that what she's trying to say?
Yeah, and I think...
How do you feel about that, though?
I wore red in support of you.
It's really nice.
Yeah, well, it was... I think it's inevitable. I think fair play to City. different class. They should be in a different league.
But there's problems. There's obviously problems, though, isn't there, at Manchester United?
Well, there's not at City.
There's not at City, but at Manchester United. It's whose fault is this? Different people are pointing the fingers in different places. I mean, there's Fernandes there.
What did you make of Keane? Roy Keane said yesterday that if he was in charge, he wouldn't have Bruno as United captain.
I agree. He looks like a sulker to me.
But funny coming from Roy Keane.
Yeah.
I thought that was a bit strange.
But when you think about how Roy Keane is and how Roy Keane was as a player, the captains these days are very different from what you would imagine a captain should be. A captain is someone who will always be looked up to, will always give everything. He's the old roll your sleeves up, come on, let's get going. Whereas captains these days, then they use, a lot of football teams and fans will go, oh yeah, but he leads by example. And leads by example just means he plays well, and then you kind of do it.
They're peacemakers and things.
But the thing is that's not Bruno.
No.
And you've got.
And I like that sort of captain. I liked Roy Keane as captain, and I like that, giving it all as captain.
But that's what you want. There's not many of those around these days.
Quick word then about Villa and Liverpool, who were the other games, and West Ham yesterday.
Yeah,
as well.
absolutely. Well, Everton have been through a horrible week, haven't they? Because of course Bill Kenwright passed away last week, which was very sad. And also then there was the next day Premier League then threatening to dock them 12 points, which is possible. So it's been a pretty bad week for them. But they're on the turn as far as playing is concerned. They started off terribly. They've won 3 from their last 5. West Ham were not good at all yesterday. Yeah. So a good win for Everton.
OK, thank you very much indeed, Paul. Paul will be back in an hour's time.
Still to come. Tributes are pouring in for the Friends star Matthew Perry. We're discussing all of them next.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. Join me, Mark Dolan, Fridays and Saturdays from 9, Sundays from 10. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
There's only 3 people you can trust in life. Your doctor, your lawyer, and your nana.
I'm not sure.
So join me, Nana Aquare, at 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday, where we discuss the biggest topics of the weekend. Be ready for battle.
Could you be quiet? What is this?
It's
my new teeth. It's your new teeth.
I don't bite. Well, not without a good reason. Always honest, always fun. Every weekend at 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real, robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute. Kick it up a gear with me, Patrick Christie's, at Drive Time, 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+, on the smart speaker app and on the GB News app. And if you've got an Alexa, all you have to say is, Alexa, play GB News. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with me, Patrick Christie's, on GB News and GB News Radio.
OK, welcome to Headline Makers. It's our favourite part of the programme. This morning we're joined by Chris.
It's not my favourite part of the programme.
Well,
Why are you speaking for me?
Well, what's your favourite part then? What do you prefer, the sport?
No, every time I talk to you, it's my favourite part of the programme.
Oh, bless him.
Chris,
The screen wife.
That was actually quite nice. Anyway, we're going to start, Chris, with the front page, and we have to really reflect everything that's going on in the world. But Sir Keir Starmer facing a bit of a battle at home on his own position. I think a quarter of MPs within his own party disagree with him, and real challenge to his authority.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Sir Keir Starmer has really taken a grip of the Labour Party over the last few years and purged the left of his party. He's ruled with an iron fist, and he's situated the Labour Party quite square in the middle of the right-centre politics, Blair as an heir to Blairism. But what's going on right now in the Middle East is obviously bubbling up within his party, and I suggest probably also within the Conservative Party also. So although this is talking about Sir Keir Starmer, I'm sure the Prime Minister, Mr Sunak, will have exactly the same, because in a country where you would hope over something as stark as what's going on in the Middle East, that people will be allowed to have their own personal opinions. And what he recognises is that he can't put the lid on it, that if he comes down too strongly on his cabinet, he's got what is it? It says 50 Labour MPs want to talk about a ceasefire. He's got many people of his front bench, namely Jess Phillips, Kim Ledbetter, Sarah Owen, Eamonn Hussein, Andy Slaughter, Yasmin Qureshi, and Naz Shah, to name but a few, who want to have a ceasefire. We said earlier in the first one that I don't want to take sides on either side. The only side I'm on is innocent civilians, and I recognise, of course, that if there is some sort of pause, that Hamas will have an opportunity to regather itself. However, what would you put on the piece of civilians who are being obliterated? 8,000 so far, 4,000 children, carpet bombing in Israel. It's got to be something that saves the children. Save the children, said up to 1 million people. So there's more children being killed in this short 3 weeks than since 2019.
Everybody gets that, Chris, and I think the problem is that what you're saying is fair and logical and humane. As soon as you come down in the side of one side or the other, or appeal for one side, somebody will say, so what about the children who were killed 3 weeks ago?
100%. And I'm for those children. I'm for what happened on October 7th quite clearly is an anathema. It's anti-human, it's anti-civilisation. We get that. But what happened on October the 7th, as awful it is, it cannot be weighed off with... OK, you get the picture.
I also think it's really interesting. We've showed a clip earlier in the programme, the chap from the International Criminal Court, his name I forget, but talking about possible crimes against humanity happening at the moment. If we undermine the International Criminal Court, we haven't got a leg to stand on when it comes to Putin or whoever it might be.
Correct.
We have to respect what they're saying. And by that, I mean the West. We have to allow them to do their work independently. And it's a real moment where we're on a bit of a precipice, where if we actually start to undermine these organisations, the United Nations, the International Criminal Court, what sort of world are we going to be left with?
Well, absolutely right. So these organisations, are here to actually be the sort of calm, rational voice in a state of fervent fervour, when we lose rationality, and you can't undermine them at this moment in time.
The thing is, we're going to take notice of them, but...
No.
Our Hamas, they're not going to take any notice of them.
Or the IDF, are they going to take any notice of them?
On the front page of every single paper today is a picture of the actor Matthew Perry, who played Chandler Bing in Friends. Let's go to showbiz expert Kinsey Schofield on this one. And guys, feel happy to talk to Kinsey during this. But I believe the police are reporting as to cause of death today.
That's right. There was an autopsy. It's come up deferred, which means there's going to be toxicology tests taken, and those can take weeks, sometimes up to months to get those results back. But what we are hearing from Page Six, that's a little bit new information, is that the core cast of Friends is currently working on a joint statement they can release. According to sources, they are reeling about the death of Matthew Perry. They say that he was their brother and that they fiercely protected him through some of his toughest times. They believe that this is incredibly unfair, according to one of Lisa Kudrow's friends. And no one saw this coming because they felt like he was in a really good place, that he had one of his best years.
As you say, no one saw this coming, and I suppose it reflects our own mortality because, when we watch programs and we like programs and someone disappears from that program, or whether they're a pop star or whatever, these are tracks and episodes from our years, Dawn.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I remember for me and my generation, it was Terry Hall from The Specials when he passed last year, and I felt like I'd lost a friend. And I'd never watched Friends.
Gosh.
Not a single episode.
Neither have I.
I know, not
That's
Chris.
incredible.
I know.
Oh my goodness, well, it's just you and me, Kinsey. I feel like we should just shut these guys out because honestly, I spent so much time yesterday poring over pictures, reading extracts from his memoir, rewatching episodes of it because I mean, it was such a big part of my formative years. I was 12 when it came out, 22 when it ended. We all wanted to be Rachel. To be honest, actually looking back now, my 41-year-old self, Chandler Bing's the guy I would have gone for. He's clever, he's funny. At the time, everyone just didn't really I didn't appreciate him.
He's good looking too, isn't he?
Very handsome, boyish good looks. How do you feel about it all, Kinsey? I mean, I've genuinely been really sad about it.
Oh, no, first of all, Isabel, I don't know, was it Ross that you were into or Joey? Chandler was the only one that had the reliable job.
I was backing Rachel and Ross, and I just got swept up with that. And he was always a bit of a goofball, wasn't he? But looking back, he was totally my type.
Absolutely. So quick-witted. The sarcasm was just so brilliant, and he was handsome. But I do think that aside from the fact that he helped people that were at home struggling with mental health issues, that he was such an escape for them. And he was such, he was the soul of that show. We're finding out now all of the work he did behind the scenes to help people that had substance abuse issues. Hank Azaria, the actor, recently came out and said, "It was Maddie that took me to my first Alcoholics Anonymous meeting." Matt had established homes, safe places for people to go after as they pursued their recovery. He worked with all sorts of charities. So, I think that I was coming from a place of think about all of the people he helped through dark times as they were just sitting in their home laughing at him on television. And now we're finding out about all of this work he did behind the scenes to help other people with addiction. And so while I am seeing those headlines and people asking questions about could this potentially be related to some sort of drug issue, I would hope that it's not. His friends, co-stars, hope that it's not, deeply hope that it's not. But the reality is this is a man that had 14 surgeries related to his addiction issues, and there might have been consequences to his body, but at this point in time, we believe fiercely that he was in a good place, challenging his body, playing pickleball for 2 hours, and in a good place mentally and physically, or at least trying to be.
But alone
Kinsey,
at the end.
thank you.
So sad.
Well, and thank you for your tributes and your analysis there on that.
Can I just say one thing about Matthew Perry? Even though I've never watched a single episode of Friends in my life, and I would probably not recognise him in the street, what he did for addiction was incredibly important. He set up a thing called Perry House, which is a sober living facility for men in America. Now, while I've never watched Friends, I've got no idea about it, I think we all know someone that has suffered or is suffering from addiction. And I think, and he himself said, I don't want to be remembered just for Friends. I want to be remembered for how much I tried to help people with addiction.
Yeah, amazing. But do watch some Friends. I think it's very, very clever, very well written.
I'll be there for you.
I had the CD. I used to play the CD all the time. Music.
La la. Should we go and watch some football, boys?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, no.
Very good. When the guys come back again, they're going to talk about why a monthly cinema trip could cut your risk of diabetes.
Really?
I would have thought increase your risk of diabetes, but anyway, the weather picture is going to be a bit mixed over the next few days, and windy. Here's Rachel Ayres.
Good morning, my name's Rachel Ayres and welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast brought to you by the Met Office. So we saw plenty of rain and showers throughout the weekend and not a huge amount of change as we go into the new week. Heavy showers that could be thundery across southern parts of Wales and England as we go through this morning, with that overnight rain having cleared away from Scotland and northeast England. Some sunny spells around as well, especially across Scotland and central and eastern parts of England. And it'll feel pretty pleasant here, especially away from the coast where those winds are a little bit lighter. So highs of 14 to 16 in the south. They're a little bit cooler in the north with those northerly winds. Now, as we go through this afternoon, we'll see further showers continuing, but this band of showers will become a little bit more organised into this evening and bringing some heavy and persistent rain to Northern Ireland. So there could be some disruption here. Plenty of clear spells, though, ahead of this, especially across southern England and Scotland. A bit of a chilly night across Scotland as well. Could be a touch of frost in some sheltered rural spots. So to start Tuesday then, we'll see this band of organised showers making its way very slowly northeastwards. So driest conditions to the northeast of this with the best of the sunshine across Scotland. A little bit of respite from the showers across the southwest before this next system makes its way in as we go into Tuesday afternoon. And still feeling pretty pleasant in the sunshine. Always cooler though across Scotland with those northerly winds bringing that cooler air.
Still to come, Mark White in Tel Aviv on the latest updates on the conflict as civil order breaks down in Gaza next.
Who is it? We're here for the show.
More energy this time!
Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie.
Second best.
You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these three.
Ah!
No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays at 9 on GB News.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamonn.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute. Kick it up a gear with me, Patrick Christie's at Drive Time, 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+, on the smart speaker app and on the GB News app. And if you've got an Alexa, all you have to say is, Alexa, play GB News. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with me, Patrick Christie's, on GB News and GB News Radio.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I. So you want higher taxes? Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you. Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
Delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train.
Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa!
Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
Very good morning to you. 8 o'clock is the time. Well, I lied to you. It's not. It's actually 34 seconds to 8 o'clock.
Yeah,
it is. But anyway, it's quite late on in October. Can't even remember what day it is.
One day till Halloween.
Halloween, right. Well, it's nice of you to come in dressed up this morning.
Stop it.
That witch look will catch on. It's excellent. This is Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel. We're here with you right through until 9:30.
It is
What's in the news, Isabel?
Good to be back. Well, here's what's leading our news this morning. The Prime Minister is to hold an emergency Cobra meeting to discuss the domestic security risk from the Israel-Hamas conflict. This comes as Israel expands its ground offensive into Gaza. Mark White has the latest from Tel Aviv.
Well, there is growing fears of a widening regional conflict here after dozens of rockets and other munitions were fired into northern Israel from southern Lebanon over the past 24 hours.
A whiff of rebellion within Labour over Sir Keir Starmer's position on the Israel-Hamas conflict. Senior Labour frontbenchers plead for a ceasefire. Political correspondent Catherine Forster in Westminster.
Yes, a real challenge to Sir Keir Starmer's authority as more and more Labour MPs freelance with their calls for a ceasefire, despite the fact that the Labour leadership is merely causing for a humanitarian pause.
And new research says companies that have been investing in AI are facing difficulties accessing the technical and digital skills they need. Some manufacturers warned this could result in the UK falling behind some of the other advanced economies in the world. We'll have more on that later in the programme.
Does AI teach you how to speak? Does it?
You say it's a tongue twister.
If you can cure that with AI, let us know this morning. Paul Coit can't even cure anything in my life. My life's bereft.
I can. I'm a doctor, I'll have you know.
Yes.
Yes.
He was about to say he's bereft without you. So that's
no, I wasn't going to say that. I wasn't
Were you really going to say?
No, I was bereft about yesterday's football results.
Okay.
I mean, really, Paul, you know, sometimes you just go and you think that was an unlucky win or it was, jammy or whatever, and you think...
They deserve to lose.
Yeah, you just think, City class apart.
Well,
just
listen, the thing is,
differently.
I'm a Spurs fan, so I don't really know what it's like to lose.
Well, look, I'll tell you what it is. City are better than you. They're better than Liverpool.
Yes.
They're better than Arsenal.
Yeah.
There's nobody to touch them.
Brazil. Anybody else?
Yes.
Maybe they should just have a thing of their own. Anyway, lots of football yesterday. Spurs are still on top of the Premier League, I should mention. England losing the cricket again, and Speedy Gonzalez wins the Mexican Grand Prix.
Oh, Speedy Gonzalez.
We'll work on that one.
The Dutch version.
Yes.
Plus, it is looking rather wet out there today. Rachel Ayres has your weather. Good morning, Rachel.
It may be a new week, but the unsettled theme in the weather is not going anywhere. Further showers and rain expected today with disruptive weather later in the week. Join me later for a full forecast with all the details.
Thank you for that, and thank you for your comments this morning. We're talking about cabin crew. We're talking about a case in America whereby 2 cabin crew are taking on United Airlines because they think they were discriminated against because the airline wanted a certain type of person as cabin crew. What do you think about that? If you are cabin crew, of which I'm a big fan of, I have to say. And, you know, well, anyway, Julie says, I flew with American Airlines earlier this year and was pleasantly surprised to see women cabin crew appeared to be in their late 50s, who were smart but not glamorous, carrying out their role in a friendly, professional manner.
Surely that's the key. Christine says cabin crew and their once immaculate presentation have definitely gone off the runway. No pride in their appearance, along with little care for their passengers anymore. It is very sad to see. I thought a chap might say that. Interesting to have a woman say that. Sharon says, I used to think all cabin crew need to look totally professional. A super smart uniform, someone looking fit and healthy, hair tightly tucked away, no jewellery or heavy makeup. Primarily, their job, though, is safety. Serving meals and drinks is secondary. People need to remember that.
Well, I've flown 8 flights in the past few weeks internally within the UK. And did you know that BA have a new uniform?
I did not.
Well, I made it my business to survey the cabin crew and say, what do you think of your new uniform? And only one said they didn't like it.
Oh, right.
The rest of them were very, very happy. And it might be, some parts of it might be a wee little bit on the cheap side, but it basically was nothing that would be responsible for highlighting your figure or...
what did you think of it?
I thought it was quite smart.
Okay.
I thought it was quite smart, yeah. Very, very good. I mean, as a matter of fact, I think I'd be very good on cabin crew. I'd be the chief purser. You'd be somebody under me, somebody, I don't know if I could tell.
I'll be flying the plane, let me tell you.
Okay, and then I'll say, doors to manual and cross-check. Thank you. You'd look good in uniforms.
Yeah, you'd look good as a captain as well, I think, yeah. Right, send in your thoughts, gbviews at gbnews.com. Be part of the conversation, or you can X us at GB News.
This hour, Rishi Sunak will hold talks with top security and defence officials to discuss the domestic threat resulting from the conflict in the Middle East. Anti-Semitic and Islamophobic incidents have surged across the country. Hundreds of offences recorded now by police.
Well, in Gaza itself, armoured vehicles are continuing to pour into the Strip as their defence forces begin to take over the Strip piece by piece.
The military claims soldiers spotted armed terrorists and an anti-tank missile launching post near the Al-Azhar University and guided a fighter jet to strike those.
The Palestinian Red Crescent say that Israel has asked them to immediately evacuate the Al-Quds hospital, but they are unable to do so. Israel claims that one of Hamas's key operating centres lies directly beneath it in their network of tunnels.
So far, 38 trucks carrying vital supplies have been allowed to enter Gaza from Egypt, just a day after hundreds raided a United Nations depot to take rations away.
In a surprise tweet from the International Criminal Court, prosecutor Karim Khan warned of the dire situation in Gaza and said he hoped to visit the area to investigate possible war crimes.
We're independently looking at the situation in Palestine. We are looking at the events in Israel and the allegations that Palestinian nationals have also committed crimes. We need cooperation, we need assistance. But we're going to have the determination, the stamina and the professionalism to make sure we separate allegation from fact.
We're also getting reports that Hamas is blocking the exit of foreign nationals in order to extract concessions from Israel and Israeli allies.
Well, the fighting might be confined to the Holy Land, but its consequences are not. This footage from a Dagestani airport in Russia shows a crowd storming the terminal in anti-Jew antics, looking for people arriving from Tel Aviv.
And this is absolutely frightening. I mean, this mob, police were deployed. They eventually managed to bring the situation under control as these people just stormed through that airport, broke open doors, went through security, just looking for people who were Jewish. 60 were arrested as a result. Israel has said to Russia it has to protect all its citizens and all Jews.
Well, let's cross to our security editor, Mark White, who's in Tel Aviv. Look, listen, there's this emergency Cobra meeting here, worried about the threat it's posing at home. We're seeing this footage from Russia. And meanwhile, intensive bombardments continuing where you are. What is the risk, do you think, Mark, of all of this spreading and widening out?
I think there's real potential for that to happen. And in terms of domestically in the UK, they know, because we've been here before, that after the Iraq war and the Afghanistan war, there was an uptick in terrorist incidents that were attributed by those that carried out those attacks to those particular conflicts. So the Domestic Security Service in the UK and the Counter-Terrorism Command of the Metropolitan Police are keeping an eye as best they can on the thousands of known extremists in the UK, always trying to assess who might cross over from being an extremist into enacting those extreme views in a violent way. And the difficulty is of course, that yes, they'll know certain individuals, and some individuals may give them more concern than others, but there's also the issue, the phenomenon that we've seen in recent years, which is the phenomenon of people being radicalized very quickly over the internet or through their television screens. And when the images come out of Gaza, of the Israeli bombing there and very significant civilian casualties, that can be enough to trigger people into a violent response.
OK, with that update, Mark White in Tel Aviv, thank you very much indeed.
Labour's infighting continuing. Shadow Science Secretary Peter Kyle claiming Labour will not sack shadow cabinet members for rebelling against Keir Starmer's stance on the Israel-Gaza conflict.
But with the growing in-party divide over the issue, will the party's Blair-like poll lead begin to dwindle?
Joining us now, our political correspondent Catherine Forster on this one. Tell us about the rebellion, tell us about the fight, tell us about the dissension on all of this. And Catherine, how important is it for Starmer to maintain a consistent line on this? Because is there much difference between a pause and a ceasefire?
Well, it is a challenge to Keir Starmer's authority. It's very difficult because the situation is evolving. As we've seen in the beginning, just 3 weeks ago, it was fairly easy for Labour to take a united line on the right of Israel to defend itself. But of course, as we've seen now, concerns not just about the 240 hostages that Hamas has taken, but the 2 million people, frankly, in Gaza that are being told to move to the south. Apparently, over 7,000 have lost their lives. They're running out of food and water. So big calls for a humanitarian pause. That's the line coming from the government. That's the line coming from Sir Keir Starmer and the Labour leadership. That's the line coming from the United States as well. But lots of Labour figures now, most notably Labour mayors of Manchester and London, Sadiq Khan, Andy Burnham, the Scottish Labour leader Anna Sarwar, and some shadow frontbenchers too, saying, no, that's simply not good enough. We need an outright ceasefire. Now, Peter Kyle, the shadow science minister, said that's basically just semantics. It's dancing on the head of a pin. I suppose the difference is that a ceasefire is longer term, indefinite, whereas a humanitarian pause or pauses implies something much more temporary that could be just a number of hours or days to get food, to get supplies in to these people. But Labour treading a very fine line here because, of course, it's only a few years since Jeremy Corbyn was in charge of the Labour Party. He had described Hamas and Hezbollah, these terrorist groups, as his friends. Now, Keir Starmer has been on a mission to move a long way away from that and to root out anti-Semitism, which became a huge problem under Jeremy Corbyn, from the Labour Party, and to move on and to make it clear that Labour will have no truck with anti-Israel sentiment. But I think it is becoming more difficult as Israel takes the actions that it feels it needs to as the humanitarian crisis escalates in Gaza. It's a very fine line. They don't want to be seen as anti-Israel. They also don't want to be seen as anti-Palestine, anti-Muslim. There's just under 4 million Muslims in England and Wales, and most of those our Labour voters.
Okay, but it's interesting that, you know, where Sir Keir Starmer feels he can't go, we've actually seen the leader of Labour in Scotland and the Labour leader for Greater Manchester and the Mayor of London all coming out and saying it. So why is it not politically difficult for them? I mean, arguably, I think Sadiq Khan's got the biggest Labour mandate in the country, hasn't he?
Yes, these are very powerful Labour figures and powerful enough to do and say whatever they like, really, without any consequence. I think the answer with Sir Keir Starmer is simply that he thinks that he is on course to be Prime Minister in a year or so from now. And so he is mirroring the line from the government, which is calling for a pause rather than a ceasefire. He's mirroring the line from the United States. But as you say, big voices calling for a ceasefire, and not just from within the Labour Party. The United Nations General Assembly last Friday had a vote. About 140 countries voted for an immediate ceasefire. 14 voted against, including Israel and including the United States. And about 40 abstained, including the United Kingdom. So an incredibly difficult issue, and I think only likely to get more so in the coming days.
Catherine Forster.
Yeah, I'm just saying that, Catherine, there's also a risk to a terror threat in Britain because of all of this. We can't pretend that there's not going to be a repercussion here.
Yes, absolutely. And there's a COBRA meeting being held this morning. The Prime Minister, the Home Secretary, Suella Braverman, meeting with security officials and the police. Sir Mark Rowley, the head of the Met Police, saying how challenging it is. These protests that we're seeing, well, for the last 3 Saturdays in London and cities throughout the UK and indeed throughout the world, and real concerns now that potentially the terror threat in the United Kingdom is higher. It's currently set at substantial, but it is possible that it might be raised in the coming weeks and days because of the situation in the Middle East, because of the tensions that is causing and the effect that that is having, not just in the Middle East, but as we've seen, you know, those horrific scenes at the airport in Russia yesterday and increasingly throughout the world.
OK, Catherine, thanks very much indeed.
Now, we're going to talk about cosmetics. After a law was passed to prevent under-18s in England from having procedures like Botox and filler, reports are suggesting that some young people are now crossing into other areas, across borders, in order to avoid such restrictions, and this is within the UK.
It just absolutely staggers me that anyone under 18 would feel they need any of this. Such is the power of social media.
Except if you had some sort of deformity or something that you think could be...
You get that on prescription or whatever, but... You know, these are just it's just terrible. Our North West of England reporter Sophie Reaper paid a visit to 2 clinics on the border of England and Wales, and they're just a couple of miles apart. But because of differing laws between the 2 countries, one is legally allowed to inject under 18s, while the other is not. Here's her report.
The pressure to look perfect has never been higher. As the beauty industry continues to develop new techniques, social media provides a constant platform for people to follow the latest trends.
At 18, when I was going to any person that was doing an offer on Instagram, actually I had more filler in my face. I don't regret it because now I can talk about it. I just wish that I had done more research and not used Instagram as a research tool.
Since appearing in Love Island, Faye has begun campaigning to have better standards across the beauty industry, including regulations surrounding under 18s.
I know there's a lot of younger people out there getting these works done as little as 18, 17, you know. Every time I've ever been before now and before what I'm campaigning for, I've never been ID'd. No one ever asked me to prove my age when I went.
A big frown down.
Jane began her career in aesthetics back in 2008. Since then, she's noticed a huge spike in the number of young people who want work done to alter their appearance.
They're seeing these unrealistic expectations and they're thinking that they can book in and have a filler treatment and look like their idols, One of the worrying things about that is, you know, the increase in body dysmorphic disorder.
Amid growing concerns for young people, a law was passed in England in 2021 to prevent under-18s having injectable enhancements.
Most registered professionals wouldn't be treating patients under the age of 18 anyway. We know that younger people can make poor choices, are less able to make balanced decisions about what they want.
Here in England, if you're under the age of 18, then legally you aren't able to have cosmetic procedures such as Botox or filler. However, if you take a short stroll up the road and cross the border into Wales, you'll suddenly find the law is very different. Just 6 minutes down the road from Jane's business is another clinic offering similar services. However, because of simple geography, the regulations it's held to are vastly different. Legally, they would be able to treat under 18s, but because of ethical reasons, they've always refused to do so.
Safety, to me, is the number one priority. We've always been against it, but certainly there are clinics around the area that do treat those young people and do enhance their features with such things as lips and cheek fillers, and, you know, freeze their faces with Botox. And the Welsh Government should be not just regulating the age, but they should be regulating who should be allowed to do these treatments.
So far, England is the only country in the UK to make it illegal for under 18s to have this kind of procedure. But as concerns grow, some people are questioning whether it's time for others to take a stand and change their laws too. Sophie Reaper, GB News.
Well, for more on this, let's talk to Dr. Dukabukata.
Dr. Dooku, he said, is fine.
Dr. Dooku, did you have a cartoon series on ITV?
No, but you can think of Count Dooku from Star Wars.
Count Dooku, yes. Was that Christopher Lee played that part?
Yes.
Christopher Lee's a fascinating actor. I had a lovely conversation with him one day.
He is amazing.
Yeah,
and
tales to tell.
It's an honor for me to carry his name.
But Dr. Botataka is a Botox man, but he says that he would never do cosmetic Botox for an underaged person. Why, Doc?
There's several reasons. The first and foremost reason is teens are a lot more impressionable. We live in an era of social media. They're bombarded with these filters, unrealistic faces, unrealistic expectations. So, and you have to remember that fillers and Botox are very addictive. People don't realize, but they are very addictive. That's why you see people on the street walking, not realizing that their face does not look entirely human. So, I think you need time, you need your personality to be evolved enough before making a decision.
But you look at artificial intelligence, you look at people with filters on their phone, and people can look whatever way they want.
Exactly.
And the reality is, when they stop looking at the phone and they look in the mirror, they frighten themselves to death,
Unless they get these procedures. But I mean, who amongst us wouldn't want to look like their under 18 self? I would love that lovely, firm, young flesh.
I completely agree. I completely agree. And we don't have to demonize cosmetic procedures because they can improve and preserve, but there is a limit to what they can do. And when you're under 18, you don't need to look under 18 because you already do that. And you have to choose them for the right reasons. And in some people, even up to 21, their face changes. And when you don't let the facial muscles, the facial symmetry evolve by itself. Use Botox, for example. Use Botox to block in somebody who's 17, 16. You block their forehead, you block their glabellar area.
The nerve dies, doesn't it?
It doesn't die. It paralyzes the muscle, but what happens is, especially in very young individuals, the other muscles start carrying the weight. So if you look at people between 2005 and 2010 that have been using Botox in their early 20s, what you'll notice is they have very unnatural lines around their cheeks. There's nothing that we can do to treat those.
What can you do, doctor? Is there anything you would do to people who are under 18?
So first of all, social media and marketing should be blocked for underage people.
It's never going to happen. It's never going to happen. I mean, you can't... We talk about it all the time on this programme, the stuff that kids are exposed to, whether it be porn or unrealistic images for girls, it's out of the genie now.
I think I'm more optimistic than you.
Okay.
I think if we use our power as doctors and also the influencers, if they start talking, if they start telling that, look, I am 26, I use this filter, this is not how I look, this is actually how I look. From time to time showing people that you cannot look perfect and that fillers and Botox will not turn you into... Exactly, it will not turn you into Kylie Jenner. And even Kylie Jenner doesn't look like Kylie Jenner.
Well, yeah, but she was very young when she completely changed her look, not with filters, but with major work.
Yes,
I
she
think
was.
That really was the first person to make people think they could reinvent their look. She was the least attractive, to be crude, and now she's the most successful and arguably most attractive. It's a compelling argument for surgery, isn't it?
If you look at some of her photos, and also what she recently said was that she actually regrets doing it. So I think we're going to enter a trend where realistic expectations and a more natural look will be what people search. It's going to take time, but now we have almost 30 years of using these procedures, and we're starting to see how people age with them, and especially people who have overdone them. They're not aging well, and there's only so much surgery can do to correct that. So hopefully, we're gonna find a middle ground where people who actually need it to improve their self-confidence, to preserve their youth, will do it, and people who don't need them, people who are young, will enjoy their youth.
Oh, just enjoy your youth. Dr. Butokwa, thank you very much indeed, a plastic surgeon.
Doc. Thank you very much.
It's like telling the young to appreciate being young. You just can't tell them.
No.
You just don't appreciate how great you look until you get to my age.
Get the doctor's card.
Get your number. Good idea. Maybe you'll do us 2 for 1.
No, I'm...
You're fine.
No, I like... I've been just this affliction that I'm almost perfect. But you know, but you see older women like you, I like the craggy, I like that. You know, I think that's nice, that sort of character.
The craggy look.
The craggy look, you know. Is that for Halloween, that look, or is that just...
See, this is why we all get insecure. What do they say, though? No wrinkles on a balloon.
No wrinkles on a balloon, that's my philosophy, totally. Always remember that, Doctor. That's an old Irish saying. There are no wrinkles on a balloon. So I work very hard at keeping this weight so that there is no...
I mean, you have good genetics, so that helps.
No, stop it, you.
Good.
Right, we're going to take a little look now at the forecast. It's going to be rainy. Rachel Ayres with all the details.
Good morning, my name's Rachel Ayres and welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast brought to you by the Met Office. So we saw plenty of rain and showers throughout the weekend and not a huge amount of change as we go into the new week. Heavy showers that could be thundery across southern parts of Wales and England as we go through this morning, with that overnight rain having cleared away from Scotland and northeast England. Some sunny spells around as well, especially across Scotland and central and eastern parts of England. And it'll feel pretty pleasant here, especially away from the coast where those winds are a little bit lighter. So highs of 14 to 16 in the south, though a little bit cooler in the north with those northerly winds. Now, as we go through this afternoon, we'll see further showers continuing, but this band of showers will become a little bit more organised into this evening and bringing some heavy and persistent rain to Northern Ireland, so there could be some disruption here. Plenty of clear spells, though, ahead of this, especially across southern England and Scotland. A bit of a chilly night across Scotland as well. Could be a touch of frost in some sheltered rural spots. So to start Tuesday then, we'll see this band of organised showers making its way very slowly northeastwards. So driest conditions to the northeast of this with the best of the sunshine across Scotland. A little bit of respite from the showers across the southwest before this next system makes its way in as we go into Tuesday afternoon. And still feeling pretty pleasant in the sunshine. Always cooler though across Scotland with those northerly winds bringing that cooler air.
Now, since we're talking about cabin crew today, I just want to say a special word of attention to Newcastle International Airport, Newcastle-Man. And it's won the Airport of the Year in the under 5 million category at the Roots World Conference, so handles under 5 million passengers a year. Have you ever been to Newcastle Airport?
I think I have, yeah, I have been to Newcastle Airport,
It's
yeah.
very, very
Election
simple.
coverage in Sunderland.
It's my
Did the
view,
job.
the smaller airports are Southampton. Oh,
Bristol,
absolute dream.
epic. Love Bristol.
Belfast City is very good. Belfast International is
Edinburgh,
not.
like Edinburgh. Aberdeen. It's a decent one.
But so more smaller, middle-sized airports rather than these megaliths, these behemoths. Is that the word? Behemoths.
Probably, I never know how to
of places. Anyway, after the break, the eyes of the world are on London this week. Why is that, Isabel?
Oh, it's the AI summit. This has been the PM's baby, and we're going to ask, are we really the world leaders that we think we are? That's in a moment.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. Join me, Mark Dolan, Fridays and Saturdays from 9, Sundays from 10. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
There's only 3 people you can trust in life. Your doctor, your lawyer, and your nana.
I'm not sure.
So join me, Nana Aquare, at 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday, where we discuss the biggest topics of the weekend. Be ready for battle.
Could you be quiet? What is this?
It's
my new teeth. It's your new teeth.
I don't bite. Well, not without a good reason. Always honest, always fun. Every weekend at 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes & Co, we tackle the issues of the day with real, robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute? Kick it up a gear with me, Patrick Christie's, at Drive Time, 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+, on the smart speaker app, and on the GB News app. And if you've got an Alexa, all you have to say is, Alexa, play GB News. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with me, Patrick Christie's, on GB News and GB News Radio.
Now, with the eyes of the world on London this week, specifically Bletchley Park, Rishi Sunak's Artificial Intelligence Summit is set to begin despite a significant list of no-shows.
Is Bletchley Park in London?
No.
No, it's not. It's Milton Keynes or something, isn't it?
Yeah, what we meant was on the UK. Anyway, the summit remains an important opportunity to discuss the future of AI technology.
However, are we really the world leaders that we think they are? New research has revealed companies investing in AI are facing difficulties in accessing the technical and digital skills that they actually need.
While some manufacturers have warned this could result in the UK falling behind some of the other advanced economies in the world.
And let's go to co-founder of Implement AI and former Dragon on Dragon's Den. We say good morning to Piers Linney. Piers, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
So where do you stand with AI, friend or foe?
Listen, AI is it's inevitable. It's going to change the way we work. It's going to change business, how we operate. It's going to change education. And because it's inevitable, it means that we need to get ahead. We're going from this kind of linear world to an exponential world. And I always say that there's like a ship leaving the harbour, basically. And we need to make sure that our children are on it, that our manufacturers are on it, that we're all on it. Because once that ship's got a certain distance away from the quayside, it's going to be very difficult to make that leap. So it's important for literally everybody. It's inevitable. It's going to come for cognitive labour first, and eventually be physical labour as well. It's going to change our world.
Well, look, you know, a business leader yourself, well known for being on Dragon's Den as one of the dragons. Do you agree with what we were saying a moment ago about how there is a danger that Britain, despite wanting to be a world leader on this, could actually be lagging behind other countries? Is that your experience?
Well, there's a lot of research already out there that shows that we're already lagging behind. So there's a huge productivity gap between the UK and our, say, European counterparts. So we're already behind. The question is, how do we catch up? And what you find is when you start talking about AI and artificial intelligence and machine learning, is that a lot of companies never really caught up in sort of standard digital transformation. So they're kind of catching up and then trying to implement AI.
But surely it's technology that's going to be made available to the whole world, whether it comes from Google or Apple or Samsung or wherever. Somebody will develop areas of AI and they'll just flog it to everyone else.
I've lost your audio.
Oh, shame.
Hello, can you hear me there, Piers?
The
Hello?
AI kicking in. I've muted him.
Well, that's the thing. Okay,
shame.
right, Piers, I believe it there. We lost the line there. But the thing is about AI, it's not what it can do. Are you creating Frankenstein's monster?
Exactly.
When you create it, can you put the genie back in the bottle?
Can I tell you something? We're going on holiday next year, planning our holiday, and my husband said, oh, let's go here, just random places. Say it was Crete or something, and neither of us had been there. So he decided to use ChatGPT and said, family of 4, little girl, boy of this age, destination, and he let ChatGPT plan our holiday.
What is ChatGPT?
Oh, right. Well, this is the AI that's taking over the world. People are doing their homework through it. You could say to ChatGPT, write a link into a GBNews breakfast story, and they'd come up with something like that at the blink of an eye. And so he let AI plan our entire holiday. Needless to say, I ripped the whole thing up.
Did you?
Scrapped it.
Why did you not like it?
I don't even like having Alexa in the house. And I'm not a Luddite. I really see the advantages of technology, things like at the airport when you can whiz through without having to queue up. I just don't want my personal holidays or home to be available on some digital thing. I don't know. I don't like it.
And is this GBT thing, is this an app?
Yeah, you can just type it into Google, ChatGPT, and then away. I'll do something while you do the sport. I'll find something on ChatGPT for you. Come back.
Right, OK, let's find the sport. Let's go to Paul Coit now as to what happened yesterday. The least we can say, the better about it. Go on ahead.
Shall we just gloss over? Manchester United lose 3-0 to Man City. There you are. Man United not very good, Man City very good. I think we just leave it at that. Yep. How about the Mexican Grand Prix, which was won yesterday by, guess who? Max Verstappen, again, 16th win on the trot. And see, the thing is, every time he breaks a record for the most wins in a season, because it's his record. So each time, does he get like a new award or something?
He's like AI, isn't he?
He is. He's like the perfect racing driver. He's got the perfect car. Everything's perfect. So there we are. There's Max Verstappen there. Speedy Gonzalez, I guess we could call him, couldn't we? Do you remember? Do you remember the phrase?
Oh,
what was the
Speedy
phrase? Andre, arriba. Yeah. That was Speedy Gonzalez. So he's won Mexican Grand Prix. So well done to him again. Surprise, surprise. Cricket World Cup again. A disaster for England, who lost to India. Now they've lost 5 games out of 6. They're the world champions. Still, it's not impossible to actually get to the semi-finals, but it's hugely unlikely. And it's Australia next, and they've hit form, so it's not good there. And one more, and that's Kimberly Garcia from Peru. Feel for Kimberly Garcia, because Kimberly,
Why?
well, she had a moment. Kimberly Garcia, she's in the 20k walk. You know when they do the walk, you can't have your feet off the ground.
Yes,
at any point. Always looks like the feet are off the ground. But anyway, the 20k walk in the Pan American Games. There we are. Look, there she is. She's looking very happy there. She smashed the world record. 1 hour, 23 minutes, 49 seconds. She did 1 hour, 12 minutes, 26. She couldn't believe what an amazing world record she'd done until they realised afterwards that they'd actually measured the course wrong.
How do they do that? but they just didn't measure it by a few centimetres wrong or whatever.
Well, they measured out 17 kilometres. Everybody's blaming each other. Apparently, they got this guy who's the expert in measuring courses. So I don't know whether he goes around with his tape measure and does the whole thing. I really don't know. But it was 3 kilometres out. So, of course, she smashed the world record. And the 11 other people that were behind her, they broke the world record as well. So,
they sure they weren't using this app that you were trying to use.
ChatGPT, possibly.
Yes.
Who knows?
Yes. Tell me, how long should a 20-kilometre race be? 17 kilometres? There you go.
ChatGPT.
I think it would. Where did it say for you to go on holiday, by the way? Where did it suggest? Because I'll go there.
We typed in the destination. It just gave us an itinerary.
Right, OK.
Ideas of beaches to visit. And
because if you don't want it,
he'll have it.
Yeah, I'll pass it on.
Okay.
No worries.
Thanks, Paul. Still to come, could a monthly trip to the cinema actually not increase the risk of diabetes, but reduce it?
Is this sponsored by Warner Brothers or something? This research.
That's next.
Yeah, see you in a sec.
Who is it? We're here for the show.
This time!
Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie.
Second best.
You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these 3.
Oh! No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays at 9 on GB News.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamonn.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute. Kick it up a gear with me, Patrick Christie's, at drive time, 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+, on the smart speaker app, and on the GB News app. And if you've got an Alexa, all you have to say is, Alexa, play GB News. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with me, Patrick Christie's, on GB News and GB News Radio.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
Delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train. Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa! Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
Now, do you like a pint of beer? If you do, you might be among those beer campaigners.
I like cider.
You? Well,
I like cider.
Okay. Well, back in your box, I'm talking about beer.
I am cider drinker.
Yeah, beer campaigners are urging the Chancellor to rescue the industry by cutting taxes before it's too late. The Campaign for Real Ale, a.k.a. CAMRA, says pubs and breweries are desperate for help.
But Jeremy Hunt, who is the Chancellor, has ruled out tax breaks ahead of the autumn statement, which is only a few weeks away.
Well, our East Midlands reporter Will Hollis has been on a pub crawl. He's been to Nottingham's Robin Hood Beer and Cider Festival to test the mood.
224, OK.
It's an industry thriving and barely surviving. More choice than ever, also more problems. Peter runs a microbrewery in Mansfield. He says there's fewer customers now.
We've noticed a big change in drinking habits. A lot of people are like coming out one day instead of they used to come out 3 days.
Yes, sir, thank you. Thank you. Enjoy your afternoon, guys. Thank you.
At Nottingham's annual beer festival, the forecast is grim for those who make a living in the trade. The pandemic, Ukraine war and cost of living, a potent brew punishing pubs.
Right now, the industry is being pounded by rising prices. And a lot of the people here today who work in the trade say that the Chancellor should be doing more to help.
In a couple of weeks, the Chancellor will review his economic plan and deliver the autumn statement. 30 pubs closed every week in the first half of the year, according to CAMRA, the Campaign for Real Ale.
There you go, sir. Enjoy. I will. Thank you very much. Cheers. Cheers.
Andrew is from the Nottingham branch. He's urging the government to cut taxes and revive the industry.
I would suggest that he needs to desperately look at the VAT situation. But on top of that, we all have this very unfair rating system, or a tax that takes place on properties is so uneven.
A Treasury spokesperson said, whilst 1/3 of businesses don't pay business rates at all due to government tax relief, we recognise the challenges larger pubs and restaurants face, which is why we've slashed their bills by 75%, protected them from rising energy costs, and kept the duty on pints down through our Brexit pubs guarantee. In August, the Treasury introduced new rules. The stronger the alcohol, the higher the tax. It should favour people drinking pints in pubs. But Mila, who works behind the bar, says they need even more support.
We're a very small pub, my dad's the landlord, and we rely a lot on the support of our locals and our regulars, but it's getting to the point where maybe that might not be enough anymore.
It's a business built on flavour, in an economy leaving only a bad taste. Will Hollis, GB News in Nottingham.
Chris Akabusi, Don Neeson, what do you like as your tipple? What do you like, Chris?
Yeah, so now, they say on the 19th hole, if any golfers will know, 19th hole, they'll have a little lager now. I used to have Guinness, but when I was a young kid, that is, say, 16, 17, 18, we were brought up in pale ale. Everyone had a little bit of the old pale ale, yeah.
Oh, you could be camera. If you grew a beard on top of your head and everywhere else, you could join the Real Ale Society.
Yeah, no, I haven't got a beard yet. I shaved this morning. No, a nice pint of lager, especially at football, can't beat it.
What do you like? Do you know what I really like as a lager? I can't resist it. Peroni.
My favourite. Oh, you're so... Honestly, we are bonding over Peroni. I love a Peroni.
Yeah.
People don't even need to... Other lagers are available. You don't even need to ask me what I want in a pub now. Everyone just already knows.
OK, that's you and me sorted.
Yeah.
That's good. Lovely, lovely, lovely stuff. Look at that. Looks great.
Looks good.
OK, well, let's go through. Where do you want to begin, Isabel?
Well, let's stay with the alcohol theme, or non-alcohol theme. Dawn, let's talk about this inside the Times. It's on their page 3, sort of fun section. But this is Lewis Hamilton's new formula. See what they've done there?
Ooh.
Is one fuelled by spirit of a non-alcoholic.
Yeah, he's a very exciting young man, isn't he, Lewis Hamilton? Said nobody ever. Sorry if you're a fan, but come on. Yeah, he's the latest celebrity to cash in on the drink endorsement thing, but his are different. It's a spirit called Almave, but it's not a spirit. That's the twist. See, twist, and you see what I did there?
Yeah,
it's an alcohol-free tequila. Because he likes the taste of tequila, but he doesn't like the effects of alcohol.
Gosh, I love the effects of tequila.
He sounds a...
There's nothing better.
Didn't you used to be a shot girl?
Yeah, I did, yeah. But that was vodka.
Yeah, that was last weekend, wasn't it, Isabel?
But you know what? I kind of respect the growth of the non-alcoholic. You know, I've got a friend who works in a pub and he says at least half of the drinks that he sells now are non-alcoholic, which just blows my mind. But we know how many problems alcohol does cause in A&E, in domestic violence, in our own health, all the rest of it. We need a bit of a look at how much we drink as a nation.
Some of the non-alcoholic lagers are actually quite good. They actually taste...
That's the thing, you wouldn't necessarily...
No, exactly right. They actually taste like lager. So if you want that refreshing... and without the alcoholic...
But you see, I like a drink to relax me. I don't like a drink for its taste. So someone says to me it tastes the same, but you don't get the effects. Well, I want the effects.
So it could taste like poison to you, and you, as long as it did...
Well, no, because my mum gave me a sherry yesterday and I nearly choked. I just thought it was the most revolting thing I've ever tried. But I like this effect of alcohol. A drink of alcohol relaxes me.
To relax, that's the... Yeah, I mean, everything in moderation, that's the thing. And, you know, obviously people do have... We were talking about addictions earlier on with Matthew Perry. But, I mean, if you have problems, then obviously they need to be looked at. But most people just use it sensibly. And everything has its place in moderation.
Yeah. Chris, let's talk about the workplace and over 65s. So there is a growth in people over 65 working because there's more jobs available, or they are in need of the income?
Well, I think the main thing is the demographic bubble. Actually, there are more of us now who are top every age, 45, 55, 65 anyway. This in particular is talking about the over 65s, which is my age group. And 1 in 9 of us now are working. Out of choice, I would say, mostly because they're self-employed and part-time in the majority, which, again, is exactly me. I'm self-employed and I'm part-time. I do 50 days a year. It's great. It helps me with my lifestyle, pay my bills, and keeps my fingers in.
50 days a year, did you just say?
Yeah, 50 days a year. But allows me to go and play golf and be with my children and my grandchildren, which is phenomenal. Whereas turn of millennium, it was 1 in 20, so 5% of us.
Wow.
So yeah, it's been a massive increase. But I suspect there is also a group of them who go because actually they need the income. The sense of the economy and the crisis means they have to go to work.
A lot of people don't have the skills to be able to work to that. I mean, you think of a number of jobs. To be working over 65, you couldn't be on a nursing board or driving an HGV.
Well, this is and it depends what you're doing for a living. Obviously, if you're tarmacking roads or digging ditches, you can't carry on work. I mean, when you're sitting around in a nice, warm, comfortable studio, chatting like we are, working hard as journalists, you can carry on doing that. But I was listening to this brilliant chap on the radio this morning. He was 82 and he was still flying planes. So, as a hobby.
That's fine as a hobby, but not as a job.
No, he wasn't.
I'm not sure it would be safe to carry people You know,
you have to have a test every 2 years, evidently.
Really?
But the other thing with this story, the devil in the detail as well, is they've put the retirement age up to 66.
Yeah.
So, and that's going to carry on going up. So by the time you retire, Isabel, at 100.
Well, probably not going to be able to retire.
It's like everybody else. My fear would be money. That's why I would have to keep on working, I would think, because I would hate to run out of money at any stage.
Yeah, but, sorry, just one more point on that. It just always, the story about older people working always makes me think about America and Trump versus Biden, and it just seems to me that both of them are too old. I do think you wouldn't want them in the classroom teaching your kids at that age. You wouldn't want them... I just think there has to be a point where someone says to them, I know your brain is...
Right, well, my brain's now switched to the cinema. A monthly cinema trip could cut the risk of diabetes. We promised to talk about this. Diabetes, I don't really understand how this works.
Well, there is a link between stress and anxiety and type 2 diabetes, because if you're stressed and anxious, the amount of cortisol in your system rises, which affects how your body metabolises sugar. That's the science. The reality of this is that monthly cinema trips don't have the popcorn, by the way, that's not a good thing, but monthly cinema trips, art galleries, theatre, all that sort of thing, are linked to a lower risk of diabetes, but they're also linked to people being more middle class, having a higher income, and therefore probably having a
I don't believe this survey. I can't see you're inactive, you're open to temptation as well. You're watching a film that probably will stress you because of its...
What you do if you go to a fancy cinema is you get your feet up. And if you put your feet up for 20 minutes a day as a diabetic, it really helps because you get your feet above your heart. So you know you go to those really posh cinemas?
Yes, yeah.
And you can chill out.
But can
that
you,
might be good for
would
your
your
diabetes.
Would your feet be above your chest?
No, maybe not, but I was just trying to think, you know, how...
I'm loving it. The fancy cinemas, and earlier on in our first segment, I got called a doorman, and I was wondering, what sort of hotels...
Wonder why.
What sort of hotels does Eamonn go to? It doesn't go to the Premier Inn, do you,
No,
mate?
it's not a bit of a Travelodge, is it?
They all look like
You're a posh guy, you've got the doorman looking like me, my friend.
I'm still going for the vampire, if that's okay.
Vampire, just seasonal.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's why I'm a pumpkin, round and orange.
You see, the price of cinema as well would give you some condition.
Yeah.
Well, that's true.
It can cost up to 20 quid in some London cinemas.
Yeah. For the ticket.
Go there for the ticket, yeah.
You go as a family and then you buy some...
All the stickies, chocolate, popcorn.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Well,
guys,
note,
thank you very much indeed. Chris and Dawn, we'll see you sometime in the future. Thank you for today. Thank you very much.
And we say hello to Rachel with the weather.
Good morning, my name's Rachel Ayres and welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast brought to you by the Met Office. So we saw plenty of rain and showers throughout the weekend and not a huge amount of change as we go into the new week. Heavy showers that could be thundery across southern parts of Wales and England as we go through this morning, with that overnight rain having cleared away from Scotland and northeast England. Some sunny spells around as well, especially across Scotland and central and eastern parts of England. And it'll feel pretty pleasant here, especially away from the coast where those winds are a little bit lighter. So highs of 14 to 16 in the south. They're a little bit cooler in the north with those northerly winds. Now, as we go through this afternoon, we'll see further showers continuing, but this band of showers will become a little bit more organised into this evening and bringing some heavy and persistent rain to Northern Ireland. So there could be some disruption here. Plenty of clear spells, though, ahead of this, especially across southern England and Scotland. And a bit of a chilly night across Scotland as well. Could be a touch of frost in some sheltered rural spots. So to start Tuesday then, we'll see this band of organised showers making its way very slowly northeastwards. So driest conditions to the northeast of this with the best of the sunshine across Scotland. A little bit of respite from the showers across the southwest before this next system makes its way in as we go into Tuesday afternoon. And still feeling pretty pleasant in the sunshine. Always cooler though across Scotland with those northerly winds bringing that cooler air.
Now, I'll tell you what we're going to be doing very, very shortly. Robert Hilton is the Minister for Skills, Apprenticeships and Higher Education. So this week the government are having this big seminar, which nobody seems to want to go to, on artificial intelligence. And really what we're going to put to the Minister today is, why are we doing this? What do you hope to achieve from all of this? And can we go? Because there's going to be plenty of seats to fill.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we'll be front row.
Okay.
Back with all of that in just a moment.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. Join me, Mark Dolan, Fridays and Saturdays from 9, Sundays from 10. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
There's only 3 people you can trust in life. Your doctor, your lawyer, and your nana.
I'm not sure.
So join me, Nana Aquare, at 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday, where we discuss the biggest topics of the weekend. Be ready for battle. Could you be quiet? What is this?
It's my new teeth.
It's your new teeth. I don't bite. Well, not without a good reason. Always honest, always fun. Every weekend at 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real, robust debate. Both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There'll be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute. Kick it up a gear with me, Patrick Christie's, at Drive Time, 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+, on the smart speaker app, and on the GB News app. And if you've got an Alexa, all you have to say is, Alexa, play GB News. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with me, Patrick Christie's, on GB News and GB News Radio.
9 o'clock nearly. No, it's not 9 o'clock. We've done this again. We're normally
early. We're keen.
Why? We're never early. We're never early.
Well, it's Monday the 30th of October. We can confirm that, and about to be 9 o'clock. And you're tuned into Breakfast with Eamonn, Holmes and Isabel Webster.
As for the lead story we've been covering this morning, the Prime Minister will hold an emergency COBRA meeting to discuss domestic security from the fallout of the Israel-Hamas conflict. This comes as Israel expands its ground offensive into Gaza. Mark White, the latest now from Tel Aviv.
Well, in the past 24 hours, 600 Hamas targets have been struck in northern Gaza, according to the Israeli Defense Forces. This as ground fighting continues in northern Gaza.
Rebellion within the Labour Party ranks over Sir Keir Starmer's position on the Israel-Hamas conflict as senior Labour frontbenchers are pleading for a ceasefire.
Tributes continue to flow from near and far over the sudden death of Friends star Matthew Perry in Los Angeles. Plenty of emotional reactions. We'll take a look at your tributes to Matthew shortly.
Plus, it is looking rather wet out there today. Rachel Ayers with your weather.
It may be a new week, but the unsettled theme in the weather is not going anywhere. Further showers and rain expected today with disruptive weather later in the week. Join me later for a full forecast with all the details.
And remember, you can find out all of today's stories, things we've been talking about, if you go to gbnews.com. You can also get in touch with us as well. We've been talking about cabin crew today and saluting their work. Rosie says on our flight last month, the cabin manager in our section was older and she kept her cool with a toddler running up and down the aisle. Oh, this is my idea of a nightmare. And going into the galley, 9-hour flight. They have a tough job, certainly do.
Job, absolutely.
Do you not have like an eject button or something you can put in a vacuum and then you close it and then press the button? The toddler would be
long-haul flights,
tossed
I don't know
out.
if this still happens, but in long-haul flights, they used to have their own little area, didn't they? Bunks and things, so they could go and have a little rest, cabin crew.
Oh, cabin crew have, yes.
Yeah,
they can sleep in the tail and various things like that and do all that sort of thing. Botox as well. The problem with Botox is it doesn't enhance. It makes people look a laughing stock.
Jack says, why would anyone want to inject your lips to look like inner tubes? I don't think that's Botox, just to be clear. I think that would be something else. Botox would freeze your lips so you couldn't move.
So what is it? Filler? Filler there.
Filler into their lips, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, but here's a very good point. Jamie, I really, really agree with this. How come it's illegal to have Botox under 18? Right, you can't do it, you can't go near anybody under 18, but you can change your sex even earlier on that one.
Interesting.
Keep it coming in, keep it coming in. GBViews at gbnews.com.
OK, it is our top story this morning. The Prime Minister will hold talks with top security and defence officials to discuss the domestic threat resulting from the conflict in the Middle East. Anti-Semitic and Islamophobic incidents have surged across the country, with hundreds of offences being recorded by police.
In Gaza, armoured vehicles continue to pour in there as their defence forces start to take over the strip piece by piece. The military claims soldiers spotted armed terrorists and an anti-tank missile near the Al-Azhar University, and they guided a fighter jet to strike at those.
Well, the Palestinian Red Crescent say that Israel's asked them to immediately evacuate the Al-Quds hospital, but they're unable to do so. Israel claims that one of Hamas's key operating centres lies directly beneath it in their network of tunnels.
Speaking this morning, the Foreign Secretary says we've had reassurances from Israel that they will act with professionalism and restraint and abide by international law.
Well, so far, 30 aid trucks carrying vital supplies have been allowed to enter Gaza from Egypt just a day after hundreds raided a United Nations depot to take rations.
In a tweet from the International Criminal Court prosecutor Karim Khan, he warned of the dire situation in Gaza and said he hoped to visit the area to investigate possible war crimes.
We're independently looking at the situation in Palestine. We are looking at the events in Israel and the allegations that Palestinian nationals have also committed crimes. We need cooperation, we need assistance, but we're going to have the determination, the stamina and the professionalism to make sure we separate allegation from fact.
Well, reports also suggest that Hamas are blocking the exit of foreign nationals from Gaza in order to extract concessions by Israel and her allies.
The fighting might be confined to the Holy Land, but its consequences are not. You're looking at footage here from the Dagestani airport in Russia, and what you see is just a shocking situation. A crowd storming the terminal, breaking through doors, seeking people, Jewish people, arriving in the airport from Tel Aviv.
Yeah, really shocking footage, that. Well, security forces had to be deployed to bring the situation under control. 60 people were arrested, although quite clearly there are more than 60 people there caught up in all of it. Israel responded to the news by urging Russia to protect all citizens, especially Jewish citizens.
See, what is it that motivates somebody to do that? People who are obviously not involved in the hostilities, but, you know, just happen to, by an accident of birth or from their religion, to be Jewish or from Israel.
No religion promotes that sort of thing. Hatred and, you know, just awful.
Live from Tel Aviv, let's go to our security editor, Mark White, for more on what's developing. Mark.
Well, in terms of the ground operation in Gaza, we've just had the morning update from the Israeli Defense Forces spokesman, Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari. He says that that ground offensive is continuing apace, that they are pushing slowly down through into northern Gaza, making contact with Hamas terrorists on the ground. Now, he claims that dozens of Hamas terrorists have been killed in the operation overnight. He said that that operation will continue and will expand in the hours and days ahead. He also said that they are on high alert on Israel's northern border. Now, this is because in the past 24 hours we've had dozens of rockets and missiles that have been launched into northern Israel from southern Lebanon by Hezbollah and associated groups up in southern Lebanon. And we've been told as well that there is going to be an address that will be made this coming Friday by the Hezbollah leader, Saeed Hassan Nasrallah, which many here believe may signal an intensification of that Hezbollah activity in southern Lebanon, if not their complete entry into the war. Certainly an uptick, I think, in the hostilities across the southern Lebanon border. And also we've seen missiles yesterday coming in from Syria as a response overnight. Israeli fast jets attacked targets in Syria linked to the Syrian military that they say were facilitating these missiles coming over into Israeli airspace.
Mark, can I ask you about this security advisor to President Biden who believes that Hamas are preventing American and indeed other Western citizens, including British citizens, from leaving the Strip, effectively holding them hostage? Do we have any more information about what's being done from the British side in all of that? Because I know the Foreign Secretary has been speaking in Abu Dhabi this morning.
Well, Britain is in contact, they say, with 200 British or dual nationals in Gaza at the moment. There may well be others, but those are the ones they've made contact with. Now, in terms of the crossing, that Rafah crossing into Egypt, it's still closed for all but a few aid trucks coming in to Gaza, so there's no return, although we're told that Israel and Egypt have agreed terms to allow foreign nationals and dual nationals out of Gaza. But as far as we're aware, Hamas has not yet agreed terms to allow those foreign nationals or dual nationals out. As a consequence, it's being portrayed as Hamas holding on to these individuals. That wouldn't surprise anybody, really, given the fact that Hamas is widely being reported, prevented many of its citizens from heading south, as per the Israeli orders of recent days to citizens in the north of Gaza to head south away from the worst of the fighting. We know that hundreds of thousands of civilians are still in that area around Gaza City and other parts of northern Gaza.
OK, Mark White in Tel Aviv with that. Thank you very much indeed.
Meanwhile, within the Labour Party, infighting has continued through the weekend as the Shadow Science Secretary Peter Kyle claimed the party will not sack Shadow Cabinet members if they rebelled against Sir Keir Starmer's stance on the conflict.
But with a growing in-party divide over the issue, will the party's Blair-like poll lead begin to dwindle? Let's get the thoughts of Catherine Forster this morning, who joins us from Westminster. And Catherine, this is a real challenge, possibly the biggest challenge yet to Sir Keir Starmer's authority, not least from within his own MPs, but also other significant players in the party like Andy Burnham and Sadiq Khan, both of whom are also calling for the ceasefire.
Yes, a real challenge to Sir Keir Starmer's authority. This is proving very, very difficult for Labour indeed. Now, their official line is they're calling for a humanitarian pause to get aid into Gaza, but not for a ceasefire. That's the line from Keir Starmer and his team. But people like Anna Sarwar, the Scottish Labour leader, Andy Burnham, the Mayor of Greater Manchester, Sadiq Khan, the Mayor of London, are all calling for an outright ceasefire, and so are a number of other Labour MPs, mindful perhaps there's about 3.9 million Muslims in England and Wales, and the majority of them tend to vote Labour, and many MPs have a large number of Muslim constituents. So they feel very strongly that Labour should be calling for a ceasefire, but Keir Starmer is sticking with the line that the government is taking, the same line that the United States is taking, saying, no, a ceasefire is going too far because potentially Hamas could regroup, they could rearm. What we need is simply a shorter pause, a humanitarian pause or a succession of pauses, perhaps. And of course, I think it's worth reflecting just how far Keir Starmer has dragged the Labour Party in just a few years from Jeremy Corbyn and how things were under him. Jeremy Corbyn described Hamas and Hezbollah as friends. There was a lot of anti-Semitism.
Okay.
I think you need to hand back.
We need to interrupt you. I'm sorry. We have the Minister standing by. We only have a limited time, but thanks for your analysis there. As I mentioned, Robert Halfon standing by is the Minister for Skills, Apprenticeships and Higher Education. We will be talking about your particular portfolio area and AI in just a moment, but can we start with the big news of the moment, of course, and the situation ongoing, Israel and Hamas. And I want to ask you your thoughts on these reports that Hamas are preventing British people from leaving Gaza, effectively holding them hostage.
Well, of course, these are pretty disturbing reports. I'm sure there will be more information over the next few hours. I'm sure that the Foreign Secretary or Prime Minister will make a statement further in terms of what is going on, if necessary. But what I would say is it does show, sadly, the nature of the Hamas terrorist network. They committed the biggest atrocity against Jews since the Holocaust on the 7th of October. They've built a terror network of tunnels underneath Gaza of over 300 miles filled with weapons and other armaments to try and destroy the state of Israel. They're firing thousands of missiles onto Israel on a daily basis. And it's right that Israel has the ability to defend itself because they need to root out Hamas. It's both to protect Israel but also ensure that the Palestinian people have a peaceful future.
Let's bring all of that to what you're here to talk about, which is this convention on AI this week to be held in London. Very, very important. Are we that far off, Minister, or maybe it's happening already, AI running wars?
Well, I think the Prime Minister, the reason why he's set up this important conference on safety and artificial intelligence is to precisely analyse both the threats and the opportunities of artificial intelligence. And of course there may be threats, and that's what the conference is all about at Bletchley Park, but there are also opportunities as well. And today, for example, we're announcing a £2 million investment into the Oak Online Academy, which is a resource for teachers across the country, which will help with AI and in terms of providing teachers with personal assistance, will help with data analytics, will help with collaborative knowledge, so you can share best practice, teachers can share best practice, and also have continued professional development. And the Oak Academy is a trusted source. It's already being used by 30,000 teachers. So there are opportunities as well as there may be threats.
I can see what you're trying to do here. You're trying to set up maybe a governing body for all of this, because if we identify the capabilities of AI, and someone goes off on their own and develops that without other countries having a say-so or a limit on what they can do. But that'll depend on who you get attending this week. And from what we understand, it may be a bit of a disappointing attendee roll book there. No Biden, no Macron. I could go on. What's your view about that?
Well, I really welcome the initiative the Prime Minister set out. It's worth noting that Britain actually is the third in the world in terms of the advancement of AI, and apart from the United States and China. There are a variety of governments coming to this AI safety conference, ranging from Italy to the Vice President of the United States. There are also business and tech companies there as well, so we can ensure that AI is safe for the future, but and also provides the opportunities which I've just mentioned in terms of the £2 million investment for AI to help teachers reduce their workload and be on the front line rather than having to do lots of bureaucracy.
I just want to end by asking you about footage that emerged overnight, shocking footage, frankly, coming from Dagestani airport in Russia. I don't know if you've had the chance to see it, but essentially it was a mob breaking into the airport terminal, trying to make their way because news of a flight landing from Tel Aviv had got out. Clearly anti-Jew hate. And we have here this morning in the UK an emergency Cobra meeting taking place, talking about, possible tweaks to legislation and to address the sort of accelerated terror threat we're facing here in the UK. But my question to you is, are we actually effectively using the legislation that we already have? I mean, we had people over the weekend at pro-Palestine protests calling for jihad, and the police saying that some of what was going on was open to interpretation. That can't be right, can it?
I have seen online in Dagestan against the Jewish population there and the flight that came in from Israel. It's pretty horrific, and I have to say Jews are fearful around the world. Jews are fearful in the United Kingdom. Anti-Semitic incidents over the past 2 weeks since the Hamas massacre in Israel have gone up by a huge amount. But I'm the universities minister. Anti-Semitic incidents at universities have gone up by over 400% in the last 3 weeks alone. And it is disturbing to see extremists chanting jihad or from the river to the sea, both regarded as anti-Semitic slogans. The government does believe that the police have the necessary legislation. There's prevention of terrorism acts in Parliament. There is the new Public Order Acts that were recently passed. There's racial harassment legislation. There's a wealth of...
Because my understanding is it's looking at tweaking some legislation. Yes, go on, sorry.
I'm not part of that Cobra meeting, and I'm sure that there'll be announcements made, if necessary, once that meeting has taken place.
OK, Minister, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much indeed. Robert Halfon is the Minister for Skills, Apprenticeships and Higher Education.
Still to come, we'll be taking a look at what some of you have to say about the tragic passing of Matthew Perry, a.k.a. Chandler Bing. That's in just a moment.
Who is it? We're here for the show.
More energy this time!
Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie. Second best. You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these three.
Oh! No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays at 9 on GB News.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamonn.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute. Kick it up a gear with me, Patrick Christie's, at drive time, 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+, on the smart speaker app and on the GB News app. And if you've got an Alexa, all you have to say is, Alexa, play GB News. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with me, Patrick Christys, on GB News and GB News Radio.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
Delicious.
mental?
Put your mouth. OK, here comes a train.
Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa! Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
Over the newspapers today, on the front page of every single newspaper, the reflection of the sudden death of Friends star Matthew Perry in Los Angeles over the weekend.
Yes, we've been discussing Matthew's impact and legacy this morning with Perez Hilton and Kinsey Schofield, and you've been getting in touch with your views and reflections. Let's take a listen.
When I think of Friends, I think of Friday nights running upstairs to watch the latest episode on my parents' TV. It was iconic because there was always somebody or something you could relate to in the show. And with Chandler, I just feel like he was so lovable because he had such unwavering support and love for his best friend, Joey. And his quick wit was something that always made you smile.
Matthew Perry will always be remembered as the funny guy on Friends. Chandler was far the best character. He was absolutely hilarious. However, I feel it's more what Matthew Perry did in his personal life that he should be recognised and remembered for. He used his drug and alcohol addictions, his troubles and his issues to help other people. And he set up the Perry House in Malibu to help sober living for men. And he was there to help people beat their demons. And I think that's the most impressive thing that Matthew Perry has done, that far outweigh his acting accolades. He was just an incredible human being that used his struggles to help others in that position.
The world felt much sadder yesterday hearing the passing of Matthew Perry, because it feels like losing a friend that has lit up our TV screens with so much comedy, so much charm, so much wit. And beyond that Hollywood smile, there was a man who did mask a lot of pain, but of recent became a light bearer for those seeking sobriety and being honest about his battles and struggles. And he knew that this day would come where people would focus more about what he did in Friends. But in a recent interview, he said that he wanted to be remembered for living well, for loving well, for being kind, being a person that someone could help. And I can truly say, I do believe Matthew Perry did achieve that. So
as our showbiz reporter there, Stephanie Tecci, filling the final tribute there, and really add our voice to that, really. Just a huge loss and just another Hollywood death. Really sad to see, you know, people who seem to have it all on the outside, incredibly lonely at the end, and very, very sad indeed it is.
How would you want to be remembered?
Oh, gosh. I would want to be remembered as a good person. A nice person.
That's a very good, yes, I agree with you. I think if it was me, I would want to be mentioned. I think the best thing anybody could ever say to you was, he was a decent man.
you? Well, I concur.
Decent's a good word. I like decent's a good word.
Not enough decency out there.
Yeah, thanks everything for today. Flight attendants, decent people there, cabin crew as well. Yeah, they do have a tough job. A lot of you saying that today. And where's the bit I was going to say? Jack in Blackpool says, I don't care if John Merrick, he was Elephant Man, brings me my drinks as long as they keep coming. So that's in praise. Praise indeed.
Good note to
That's how you want to mention cabin
Well, we
crew.
say doors to manual, end of the show. We'll be back bright and early from 6. Up next, there's Andrew Pearce and Emily Carver. Have a lovely day.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. Join me, Mark Dolan, Fridays and Saturdays from 9, Sundays from 10. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.